Hey everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sixpath Weeb, your guide through the wildest anime what-if journeys. You're now tuned in to my anime fanfic zone, where imagination meets chakra. Today's fanfic deep dive: what if Naruko was banished? And became the Raikage? Yeah, you heard that right, from outcast to cage level boss. Let's explore how the storm hit the hidden cloud. Quick disclaimer. This content is made purely for entertainment and discussion. I don't own any of the anime footage used here. All rights go to the brilliant creators and copyright holders behind these series. Alright, Shinobi. Let's get into it. The retrieval team sent to bring back Uchiha Sasuke had completed their mission successfully. Of the 6 original members, 4 had sustained serious injuries, 1 was badly hurt but stable, and the last had only suffered a broken finger. Thanks to the exceptional medical care of the 5th Hokage, Lady Tsunade, the renowned slug sage, they were all on the road to a full recovery, without any long-term harm. Konoha Hospital. It had been several days since Team Shikamaru had returned from the S-Class retrieval mission. Uchiha Sasuke was now confined to a hospital bed, with his chakra sealed off temporarily, along with his Sharingan. His curse mark had also been suppressed, personally sealed by Jiraiya, making it virtually unusable. At Lady Tsunade's orders, Anbu guards were stationed outside both the door and window. All Sasuke could do was lie quietly, staring at the ceiling. The door opened and one of the retrieval team members stepped in, a cheerful smile lighting her face. Sasuke turned to see the person who had stopped him from chasing the path he believed would grant him strength. The person was none other than Uzumaki Naruko. Naruko gave a tired sigh at the cold glare Sasuke gave her. She had hoped that, with time, he would understand that seeking help from Orochimaru was dangerous and misguided. But revenge had a way of clouding one's judgment. "Are you okay, Sasuke? How are you feeling?" Naruko asked gently. "What do you think?" Sasuke muttered bitterly. "Well," Naruko said with a soft chuckle, "I did warn you that I'd drag you back home if I had to, even if it meant breaking a few bones." Sasuke pulled against the restraints in frustration. "You think this is amusing? Look at me. My chakra is sealed, my Sharingan is blocked, and I'm strapped to this bed." "I told you I wouldn't let you go to Orochimaru," Naruko replied calmly. "I was trying to protect you, from him and from the path you were about to walk down. Do you really believe he would have given you that kind of power freely? There would have been a cost, Sasuke." Sasuke looked away. "If I could move right now, I'd make you regret ever interfering." Naruko's eyes widened slightly. "Sasuke. I don't want your help, Naruko," he snapped. "I don't care about Konoha or anyone else. All I want is the strength to face someone who betrayed me. That's all that matters. And you. You will always stand in my way. You don't understand what I've lost." "I do understand what it feels like to be alone," Naruko said quietly. "No, you don't. You never had anything to lose. I had a family, a name, a purpose. And it was all taken away by someone I admired more than anyone. You wouldn't understand what that feels like. So just leave me alone." Naruko bowed her head, her expression full of quiet sadness. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. The next day, Naruko waited at the usual Team 7 meeting point. When Sakura finally appeared, Naruko smiled brightly, expecting some appreciation for bringing Sasuke home. "Hey, Sakura." She didn't get to finish before Sakura struck her across the cheek with a fierce left hook. Naruko staggered, stunned, raising a hand to her face. "How could you do that to Sasuke-kun?" Sakura shouted, eyes burning with frustration. "I asked you to bring him back, not hurt him. He's lucky to even be fit for missions again after what happened. I thought you were his friend." Without giving Naruko a chance to explain, Sakura lashed out again and again, venting her emotions through physical blows. Naruko didn't defend herself, she just stood there, taking the hits with silent endurance. When Sakura finally stopped, she looked down at Naruko with tears in her eyes. "I don't ever want to see you again, Naruko. You're heartless." She turned and ran off, leaving Naruko alone with her thoughts and the quiet tears that now rolled down her cheeks. Konoha Council Chambers. Naruko had been summoned to appear before the village council. "You wanted to see me?" she asked softly, her voice flat and spiritless. Many in the room, including Lady Tsunade, were taken aback. This wasn't the vibrant, enthusiastic Naruko they all knew. Something was clearly wrong. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. "This isn't like her. I'll talk to her after this." Council Elder Mitokado Homura stood to speak. Yes, we summoned you, he said, looking over his glasses at Naruko. We have reviewed all the mission reports, from you, your teammates, the Suna Squad, Rock Lee, and your instructor, Hatake Kakashi. We commend your team's success in a mission of this difficulty, especially considering your ranks, he continued. However, we have questions about the events during your encounter with Uchiha Sasuke. Naruko swallowed hard as unease settled in her stomach. What kind of questions? She asked cautiously. What concerns us, began Elder Council member Udatane Koharu, is that you utilized a significant portion of the Kyuubi's chakra during your recent mission, resulting in considerable damage to the Valley of the End. I had no choice. Naruko replied firmly. Sasuke was using the power of the curse mark. To stop him and bring him back, I had to rely on the Kyuubi's chakra. I wasn't trying to hurt him, only to restrain him. He, on the other hand, was trying to harm me. I can prove it. Naruko then lifted her shirt slightly to reveal the lingering scars left by Sasuke's Chidori strikes, one of which had landed dangerously close to her heart. Several clan heads, Akimichi Choza, Nara Shikaku, and Inuzuka Tsume, exchanged glances, visibly moved. All of them had children who served on Naruko's team, and they had seen the heavy toll this mission had taken. One of their own had been gravely injured, and Naruko herself had barely made it through. That explanation is understandable, Uzumaki, spoke Elder Danzo Shimura in his usual measured tone. However, our concerns are not limited to the injuries sustained. In your own mission report, you mentioned that accessing the Kyuubi's chakra caused your emotions, especially anger, to escalate. According to multiple accounts, this emotional surge led to the incident with Uchiha Sasuke. This isn't the first time this has occurred either, he continued. During the Wave Country mission, your team faced an enemy skilled in ice release. Your sensei, Hatake Kakashi, reported that you released a considerable amount of the Kyuubi's chakra and came dangerously close to losing control. Although you regained your composure then, this time the outcome was different, and Sasuke was hurt as a result. That is why this meeting was called. Danzo studied Naruko quietly, his single visible eye intense. Now just a moment. Tsunade interrupted, her palm striking the table with controlled force. You're not placing the blame on Naruko for what happened. She may have drawn on the Kyuubi's chakra, but she's proven she can maintain control, like during the Chunin exams where she defeated Hyuga Neji with discipline and care. Her training under Jiraiya has helped her grow in every way. With respect, Danzo said smoothly, Jiraiya's mentorship has not eliminated the underlying issue. The container's emotional state is clearly tied to her ability to channel that chakra. If she injured someone she considers a friend, what happens if she loses control around someone she doesn't share a bond with? Her power could become a threat to anyone around her. This would not be the case if I had been given the chance to guide her through my root division, which the third Hokage disbanded prematurely. You mean turn her into a weapon? Tsunade shot back, fury in her voice. I wanted to help her become the ultimate defender of Konoha, Danzo answered calmly. My intentions have always been focused on the village's safety. More like your own agenda, Tsume muttered, her disapproval evident. She had no patience for Danzo's cold, strategic mindset. The Inuzuka valued teamwork and loyalty, and Danzo's disregard for these values had always troubled her. Danzo narrowed his eye at her but remained silent. Tsunade, Koharu said, turning the conversation, we must also factor in the threat of the organization Jiraiya reported to us, Akatsuki. Composed of several elite rogue ninja, including Uchiha Itachi and the former Sannin Orochimaru, they pose a significant danger. Their interest in the tailed beasts is well documented. Given Konoha's weakened state after the recent invasion, we cannot afford another confrontation, especially if all of them strike at once. Our village would struggle to withstand such an assault. So what exactly are you suggesting? Shikaku asked, his voice calm but wary. Simple, Koharu replied. As long as the Kyuubi's chakra remains in the village, we are a target. Therefore, I propose we send the container away. By removing her from the village, we remove the threat of Akatsuki targeting Konoha for the Nine Tails. Absolutely not. Tsunade thundered. You will not exile one of our most devoted shinobi because you're afraid. I will not allow it. As Hokage, I forbid it. Naruko froze. Her chest tightened at the mere idea of being cast out. She remembered the few times she had encountered Koharu during her childhood. While Homura had been distant but polite, Koharu had always seemed to look down on her, barely tolerating her presence. Still, Tsunade's strong defense gave her hope, surely the Hokage's word would stand above all others. But then Koharu's aged face broke into a small, unsettling smile. You are mistaken, Tsunade, she said. According to the charter written by the first Hokage, if a situation arises where the Hokage is deemed unwilling or unable to protect the village from a threat, the village council has the authority to override the Hokage's decision, so long as a majority agrees. What? Tsunade exclaimed in disbelief. Wait. Even if we ask the girl to leave the village, all we're really doing is making it easier for the Akatsuki to find her. This so-called plan doesn't remove the danger they pose, it only gives them more of what they want. It would strengthen them and make them a greater threat to everyone. I also completely oppose, both morally and professionally, how casually you're treating Naruko. To cast aside a young shinobi who has served and protected our village, despite everything she's faced, goes against the very principles that Konoha stands for, declared Kuza, his voice full of conviction. Tsunade and Naruko both shared a smile, relieved that someone was standing up for what was right and could see the bigger picture. That is not a child. She is a monster in disguise, shouted Ashikaga Shin, leader of the merchant guild in Konoha. Shin had lost his only daughter, a young kunoichi, during the night of the Nine Tails appearance, and carried a deep resentment toward Naruko. His prejudice led to Naruko being banned from most shops and restaurants in the village, or when not banned, treated unfairly, given only the lowest quality items and charged far more than others. The only businesses that continued treating her fairly were Ichiraku Ramen and Mikumo Ninja Gear and Weapons Store. Mikumo Tenshin, the owner of the weapons store, was a respected craftsman and immune to pressure from the guild. As for Tucci of Ichiraku Ramen, Shin had once tried to intimidate him after overhearing him defend Naruko, but he never repeated that mistake again. Tucci's strong character left a lasting impression. You're not thinking this through. If we follow through with this, we'll be giving one of the most powerful individuals we know directly to a dangerous group. Do you really think the Akatsuki plan to use that power for anything that benefits Konoha or anyone else? Said Inoiki, Ino's father, clearly frustrated. There's no need to worry about the Akatsuki acquiring the Nine Tails power, Yamanaka-san, Koharu responded calmly. Danzo and I have already anticipated that possibility. We've developed a plan that will activate once Naruko is no longer in the village, one that will neutralize the threat. And what is this brilliant plan of yours that can deal with 9 elite rogue shinobi at once? Tsunade asked sharply. I'm sorry, Tsunade, Danzo replied smoothly. Due to how sensitive and critical this operation is, we cannot disclose the details at this time. Because of your personal connection to Naruko, we will inform you and the rest of the council only when the time is right. Tsunade could only grit her teeth and glare at Danzo, fighting the urge to respond with more than just words. I propose we cast our votes to determine the course of action regarding the Nine Tails host, stated Koharu. Voting commences. Ashikaga Shin, I vote yes. It's time we part ways with her. Inuzuka Tsume, I vote no. This girl has been loyal to Konoha and deserves better. I've known her since she was little, and she played with my son often. Hojo Akira, I vote yes. It's safer for everyone this way. Nara Shikaku, this meeting is unnecessary and misguided. I vote no. Akimichi Kuza, Naruko was one of Choji's first friends. I couldn't look my son in the eye if I agreed to this. Plus, she's the only one who can out-eat me and Choji in ramen. I vote no. Yamanaka Inoiki, I've looked into her mind during evaluations. She's more stable than many think. I vote no. Utatane Koharu, my reasons remain unchanged. I vote yes. Danzo, I agree with Koharu. I vote yes. Sarutobi Asuma, the previous Hokage considered Naruko like family. He would never have approved of this. I vote no. Asai Hata, I vote yes. I believe it's the best decision for our future. Aburame Shibi, while some arguments for removal are logical, it's equally illogical to act without a complete plan. We too have experienced being judged unfairly. I vote no. Kurama Unkai, I understand and sympathize with her situation, but the risk remains. I vote yes. Senju Tsunade, Hokage, I vote no. We will not abandon her over fear and ignorance. Mito Kato Homura, though I don't bear ill will toward Naruko, the concerns raised are valid. I vote yes. Homura glanced at Naruko, whose eyes showed pain and disbelief. His heart sank with guilt. I'm sorry, Naruko, he thought. I only want what's best for the village, though something tells me I may regret this. My grandson may never forgive me. Anbu Commander, Naruko has proven herself repeatedly, even helping us during the Chunin exams. Without knowing the full plan, I can't support banishing her. I vote no. Amako Taichi, I vote yes. It's time to move forward. The votes were now tied, 8 in favor and 8 against. All eyes turned to the last person yet to vote, Hyuga Hyashi, leader of the Hyuga clan. Hyashi remained quiet for several long minutes, lost in thought, while Naruko sat silently, waiting for the decision that would determine her future. Finally, Hyashi spoke. Hyuga Hyashi, I vote yes. Naruko is to leave Konoha. At that moment, Naruko gently hit the ground and sat in silence. Her world had shifted completely, everything she had worked for seemed out of reach now. She would no longer be able to fulfill her dream of becoming a renowned ninja, nor would she become Hokage or see her friends the way she used to. Tsunade had tears in her eyes but remained composed. She refused to let those who pushed for Naruko's departure see her falter. But she wasn't alone in her sorrow, many others who disagreed with the council's decision were upset as well. Tsume was visibly upset, her eyes fixed in frustration on Hyashi, while her partner Kuromaru growled softly beside her. Hyashi, however, remained calm. Though I bear no ill will toward the girl, Hyashi began, I believe her departure is best for the village's current state. We face challenges ahead, and with her gone, we may have a better chance to rebuild and prepare. Perhaps with her absence, Hinata will stop being distracted and refocus on her training, becoming the heir the Hyuga clan needs. If not, then Hanabi may need to take her place. Nearby, the Anbu commander and Aburame Shibi exchanged solemn glances. They knew this decision would bring future consequences. Kuza sighed, thinking of how much this would impact his son. Shikaku simply muttered, what a troublesome decision. The civilian council members chuckled to themselves, seemingly pleased with their influence. Danzo, Koharu, and Unkai remained expressionless. Homura and Inoiki, however, lowered their heads in quiet regret, knowing this wasn't right. Asuma looked out the window at the falling rain. It reminded him of the somber day of his father's memorial. It's as if the skies themselves are mourning. Perhaps it's your spirit, father. And maybe Minato's too, quietly watching what we've allowed to happen, he thought. Anbu, escort the Jinchuriki and initiate the chakra sealing procedure. Apply the new restraint seal. She must be unable to share any sensitive village information, ordered Koharu. The Anbu near Naruko nodded and vanished with her. 2 days later, in Naruko's apartment. It was a quiet night in Konoha. Naruko had just finished packing the few personal items she owned, preparing to leave the next morning. Her throat still ached from the seal placed on her to prevent her from speaking about Konoha's affairs. Her friends had come by earlier to say goodbye, and Tsunade had taken care to ensure the news of Naruko's departure stayed quiet until she was gone. The Hokage didn't want anyone harassing her on her way out. Only close friends and their families had been informed so they could say a proper farewell. Guy and Lee had voiced their passionate disappointment in the council, declaring that they would train even harder to keep their own youthful spirits alive. Lee had declared Naruko his eternal rival and promised that he would one day help bring her back to Konoha. If not, he'd run all the way to Suna and back 100 times. Naruko chuckled at Lee's declaration. She was thankful for a friend like him, he was different, but unwaveringly loyal. They were more alike than most realized, both were orphans, both had been underestimated, and both held dreams that seemed impossible. Lee, can I ask you a favor? Naruko said gently. Anything, Naruko-chan, Lee exclaimed brightly. Promise me you'll chase your dream and show the world that someone they overlooked can become a truly great ninja. Yosh. Your spirit still burns bright. I promise I will become that ninja. Lee beamed. Neji came next, offering his sympathies and expressing disappointment in his uncle. He wished Naruko well and shared that Hinata wasn't allowed to say goodbye, a choice made by her father. Naruko understood and felt compassion for Hinata, who had to endure that restriction. Ten arrived too, expressing how upset she and her parents were. Naruko had been a regular visitor at their weapon shop, and they had always treated her kindly. Ten gave her a set of silver kunai as a parting gift, a gesture that deeply moved Naruko. Kurenai visited, bringing a carefully prepared bento box from Hinata. Naruko accepted it gratefully and asked Kurenai to thank Hinata for her thoughtfulness. When Kiba arrived, he vented his frustration at the council's actions, mentioning that his mother was still ranting about it at home. This brought a smile to Naruko's face. Shino gave a quiet nod of support, although Naruko noticed his eyebrow twitch every time someone mentioned the council. Shikamaru, Choji, Asuma, and the younger trio, Konohamaru, Moigi, and Udon, came to bid their farewells too. Konohamaru, visibly emotional, accepted Naruko's leaf headband as a keepsake. She told him to wear it proudly when he became Hokage, so that they'd both reach the title in their own way. He nodded tearfully and vowed to make things right. Udon and Moigi hugged Naruko tightly, apologizing on behalf of the adults. Naruko reassured them that they had nothing to apologize for. Shikamaru offered his usual advice to stay out of troublesome situations. Naruko grinned and said she'd try. Choji gave her a pie from his mother, and Naruko expressed heartfelt thanks. She had always appreciated Choji's family's warmth and kindness. Asuma expressed his regret for not being able to stop the council's decision. Naruko smiled and thanked him for standing up for her anyway. Tuchi and Ayame arrived last, clearly upset. Tuchi, while visibly frustrated, kept his words family-friendly. Ayame kissed Naruko on the forehead, making her blush, and handed her a bowl of ramen and several instant cups for the road. Finally, Iruka arrived. His frustration was written all over his face, and while he didn't yell, it was clear how angry he was at the unfair treatment of Naruko. He promised to speak his mind at the next council meeting. Before leaving, he gave Naruko a warm hug and told her to take care of herself. The only people who hadn't shown up were Ino, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi. Asuma mentioned that Ino was helping Sasuke recover, while Sakura was with him. Kakashi, according to Kurenai, had gone to the hospital as well. Naruko wasn't surprised and found herself at peace with their absence. When asked why, Naruko simply shared her experience with Sakura at the bridge, explaining how Kakashi had only trained her in tree walking and teamwork exercises, while he had taught Sasuke several fire-style jutsu, including Chidori. He also taught Sakura to detect and dispel genjutsu. Naruko showed the others the scars that Sasuke's Chidori had left. It was a miracle that Naruko was still alive. Asuma and Kurenai were, of course, disheartened by Kakashi's clear favoritism, and their respect for the copy ninja dwindled. Guy could hardly express how disappointed he was in his rival. After everyone had left, Naruko gazed out the window. She knew the Anbu were watching her. Though she couldn't see or sense them, she was certain they were there. As she gazed out, her thoughts turned to her life in Konoha. She had a few good memories, but most of them were filled with hardship. It was then that Naruko realized there was something she needed to uncover. If she were to leave Konoha tomorrow, she might as well find out tonight. She was determined to discover the truth about her parents. This was something she had wanted to know for as long as she could remember. When she had asked the Sandaime, the old man had told her that he didn't know. However, Naruko was certain he was lying. She had also asked Tsunade and Jiraiya, but they too claimed ignorance. Yet, Naruko was sure they were not telling her the whole truth. The pervert Jiraiya may have been a convincing liar, but Tsunade was just as skilled at hiding the truth as she was at gambling. If Tsunade knew the truth about Naruko's parents, then Jiraiya likely did too. Naruko took out a life-size papier-mâché doll of herself, one she had created years ago as a safeguard in case someone tried to sneak into her apartment while she was sleeping. She used it to replace herself, allowing her to escape unnoticed. Using a secret hatch she had built under her bed, she quietly slipped out of her apartment. Stealthily, she made her way toward the Hokage Tower. Despite her chakra being sealed, she was still an expert in infiltration and stealth. After all, how else could a child in bright orange sneak into the Hokage's tower and steal a forbidden jutsu scroll? 2 hours later, in the Hokage Tower. For the past hour, Naruko had been searching through the Hokage's office, trying to find any information about her parents. Eventually, she discovered a hidden compartment in the Hokage's desk. She spent the next half hour working to crack the combination lock on the drawer. After much effort, she managed to open it, revealing several scrolls and documents. As Naruko read through the document regarding her parents, she felt a surge of frustration so strong that she had to bite her tongue to keep from crying out in anger. They lied to me. Uro-sennin, Ba-chan, and the old man. They all lied to me, didn't they? I'm the daughter of the Yondaime Hokage, and they kept this from me. They stopped me from knowing what was rightfully mine. Naruko thought, her anger boiling inside. Among the documents, she found bank accounts showing that her family was among the 3 wealthiest families in Konoha, richer than even Asai and Amako combined. Additionally, she learned that her mother, Uzumaki Kushina, was the heiress of the Uzumaki clan, which had collapsed after the Second Great Shinobi War. The combined fortunes of both families would have made her one of the wealthiest people in the entire elemental nations. Naruko was furious. She had struggled every day of her life, relying on the village's meager support. Yet, all along, she had a fortune that was rightfully hers, hidden away from her. The village had kept her inheritance from her, and had even denied her knowledge of her true family. To make matters worse, they had placed her in a modest apartment, while her family's estate sat unused behind the village. What angered her most was that her father, the Yondaime Hokage, had sealed the kyubi inside her, forcing her to live a life of hardship. And Jiraiya, her godfather, who was supposed to have cared for her, had failed to do so. Naruko then opened a scroll she had found, which contained a letter from her father, written just before he sealed the kyuubi into her. Dear Naruko. If you are reading this, then Sarutobi has deemed you ready to know the truth. You are my daughter, the daughter of the Yondaime Hokage. As I write this letter, the battle against the kyuubi is still raging, and I don't have much time left. I know I will not return alive from this fight. Your mother's name was Uzumaki Kushina, and she passed away during your birth due to complications. Both your mother and I loved you from the moment you entered this world, and my only regret is that we will not be there to watch you grow up. We leave everything we own to you. I also want you to know that I sealed the kyuubi inside you. I hope that the village would treat you as the hero that you are, but if they have not followed my wishes and instead treated you poorly, I am truly sorry. I chose you to be the kyuubi's container because I could not ask another family to bear such a burden. The other reason for this choice was that I hoped you would use the kyuubi's power to protect the village, as I did. You were meant to be its guardian and to protect it from threats, such as Uchiha Madara, one of Konoha's founders. My time is almost up, and if you hate me for what I've done, I won't blame you. But please know that I love you, and I will never stop loving you. I wish for you to have a long, happy life. With all my love. Your father. Namikaze Minato. Well, father, it seems that the village has let you down. They treated me worse than any outcast. They treated me as if I were something to avoid, and I had to bear the consequences of your idealism and inability to face reality, Naruko muttered, feeling a surge of frustration. She placed her father's letter down and opened the other scroll. There was another letter from her mother. After reading it, small tears began to fall from her eyes. I swear, mother, I will not let you down. I will make you proud, and I will restore our family's legacy, Naruko promised quietly to herself. Naruko quickly resealed the letters in the scrolls and put everything back in the compartment, knowing that these were copies, as her mother had explained. The originals were at their family estate, along with several other important scrolls her mother had mentioned. 20 minutes later, at the Namikaze estate. When Naruko arrived at the estate, she could hardly believe that she now owned this place. It was a vast mansion, 4 stories high, with wide open gardens, and it looked like it could easily house 200 people. I own all this, and yet Konoha placed me in a tiny, run-down apartment, Naruko thought bitterly, a mix of anger and disbelief in her chest. She quickly cut her finger with a kunai and spread her blood on the seal of the gate to open it. As the gate opened, Naruko walked into the courtyard and entered the estate. She found herself in a grand hallway, swiftly searching for the library and the desk her mother had mentioned. She soon came to a locked door with another seal on it. After spreading more blood, the door opened to reveal a massive room filled with scrolls of various types. However, Naruko did not spend much time examining them. She immediately went to the desk, opened one of the drawers, and used more blood to activate a hidden compartment. There, she found the 8 scrolls mentioned in her mother's letter. After retrieving the scrolls, Naruko decided to take a few more scrolls that might prove useful later on. She grabbed several on taijutsu, kenjutsu, and sealing techniques, reasoning that if she was unable to use chakra, she would need alternative methods of defense. After taking what she needed, Naruko resealed the library door and secured the main gate once more, ensuring no one would access the estate until she returned. She vowed to reclaim what was rightfully hers, no matter what. Back at Naruko's apartment. It didn't take long for Naruko to sneak back into her apartment. She decided to leave now, rather than letting the village council have the pleasure of throwing her out themselves. She gathered her backpack and a few other belongings, but before leaving through the hatch door, she wrote a quick message on a piece of paper and left it on her kitchen table for anyone to find. Had Naruko stayed just a little longer, she would have met a late-night visitor. In the Hyuga compound, 40 minutes earlier. At the Hyuga compound, the young heiress, Hyuga Hinata, was crying her heart out. In the past 3 days, she had learned that her crush, Naruko, had been banished by the council because they saw her as a threat for some unknown reason. The worst part was that her own father had been the deciding vote to send Naruko away. When her father had told her this, Hinata had been unable to believe it. The only explanation he had given was, Naruko is a threat to the village's safety, and you will soon learn the truth. He had also told her to forget about her and focus on her Juken training, or she might end up a branch family member. In truth, Hinata didn't care about becoming clan head or a branch member. All she wanted was for Naruko to stay in the village. It hurt her even more that her father forbade her from saying goodbye. Earlier, she had asked Kurenai-sensei to deliver a bento she had made for her. As Hinata's sobs began to subside, she looked out into the night sky. A resolve formed in her heart. No more crying. I have to be strong. If this village is going to force Naruko-san out, I'm not going to let her go without telling her how I feel. This might be my last chance, thought Hinata, her determination growing stronger. Silently, she sneaked out of the compound and headed towards Naruko's apartment. Naruko's apartment. When Hinata arrived, she knocked on the door and waited. After receiving no answer, she knocked several more times. Still no response. Concerned, she activated her Byakugan to see if Naruko was inside. She saw Naruko sleeping peacefully in bed but noticed something strange: there were no chakra pathways. Panicking, Hinata broke down the door and rushed inside. She found that the bed was empty, and the figure there was just a papier-mâché doll. Hinata searched the apartment for any sign of Naruko and found the note that Naruko had left. After reading it, she collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Sake all-night sake bar, 20 minutes earlier. At the sake bar, Tsunade sat alone in the corner, surrounded by empty sake bottles. She had been there for hours, drinking away her sorrow over the banishment of her surrogate younger sibling. Bartender, another bottle of sake, Tsunade mumbled, her voice slurred. Before the bartender could respond, someone spoke up. No, she's had enough. Don't bother, a calm voice said. When Tsunade turned to see who had stopped her, she frowned. What do you want now, Shizune? Can't you let me drown my sorrows in peace? She said, frustration seeping into her voice. No. We've been through too much already with Uncle Dan and your brother. I won't let you start again with Naruko, Shizune replied firmly. She then stood and helped Tsunade out of the chair, guiding her into the night. As they walked, Shizune continued, come on, a little walk in the night air will clear your head. You need to see how selfish you're being. What do you mean by that? Tsunade snapped, irritated. Then, in an unexpected move, Shizune slapped Tsunade across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet street. Tsunade froze, shocked. She never expected Shizune to do such a thing. Before Tsunade could react, Shizune spoke again. Look at you, leader of the strongest military power in the elemental nations, and you're here, wallowing in self-pity? You did everything you could to stop Naruko's banishment, but you've done nothing to help her. She's been through so much, living here in this village, facing all that hardship just so she could achieve her dream of becoming Hokage. And now, all of that has been stolen from her. She's being kicked out of her home, and once she leaves, she will be hunted. Do you even care how she might feel right now? All she needs is the people who care about her, but you've done nothing. So stop being selfish, Tsunade. Naruko needs us, now. Are you going to go to her, or keep wallowing in that bar? Tsunade stood still for a moment, her face still red from the slap, and slowly began to process Shizune's words. She sank to her knees and began to cry. The weight of her apprentice's words hit her harder than anything else. I'm just so tired of losing people I care about. First my grandfather, then my uncle, my brother, Dan, Sarutobi-sensei, and now Naruko. Why does this village keep taking people from me? Tsunade sobbed. I know it's hard, Tsunade-sama, but drinking won't solve anything. You need to be strong, for Naruko, Shizune replied softly, helping her mentor up. After Tsunade agreed, the two of them began to head toward Naruko's apartment. As they walked, Tsunade quietly said, thank you, Shizune. I needed someone to smack some sense into me. Anytime, Tsunade-sama. I did enjoy it, though, Shizune replied with a playful smirk. I bet you did, after all the trouble I've caused you. I'm glad you're still here with me, Tsunade said with a weak smile. Always, Tsunade-sama, always, Shizune said, her smile reassuring. Naruko's apartment. When they arrived at Naruko's apartment, they found the door broken open and the lights on. They entered to find Hinata on the floor, crying uncontrollably, and a lifelike papier-mâché figure of Naruko beside her. Tsunade quickly knelt beside the grieving girl. Hinata, what's wrong? Where's Naruko? She asked, her voice full of concern. Hinata, unable to speak, grabbed onto Tsunade's robe and buried her face in her chest, crying harder. Tsunade tried to calm her, but her gaze fell on a crumpled piece of paper on the floor. Picking it up, Tsunade read it and felt her heart break. Tears filled her eyes, and she hugged Hinata tighter. Shizune, picking up the note that Tsunade had dropped, looked down at the paper with sadness. Oh, Naruko, she thought, her heart heavy with sorrow for the young girl who had lost so much. At that moment, the Anbu squad that had been assigned to watch over Naruko arrived. They had seen Hinata's visit and understood her feelings toward Naruko, though they had often joked about it. They now stood quietly, witnessing the sorrow that filled the room. The Anbu division had been made aware of Naruko's banishment due to their responsibility for village security, but they had been instructed not to disclose anything until Naruko had left the village. Like most members of the Anbu division, the squad disagreed with the council's decision because they knew she was not the Kyuubi, and they understood the complexity and skill involved in the Yondaime seal. This particular Anbu squad had kept watch over her long enough to understand that she was simply a young girl carrying a heavy burden. When they saw the girl break into Naruko's apartment, they became concerned, especially when they heard her crying shortly after. The squad was about to intervene, but upon seeing the Hokage and Shizune arrive, they decided to wait. A moment after the Hokage and Shizune entered the apartment, they heard more crying. This time, it was the Hokage crying alongside Hinata. This prompted the squad to investigate further. Shizune-san, what has happened? Why are the Hokage and Hinata-san crying, and where is Uzumaki-san? Asked the leader of the Anbu squad, wearing a bear mask. Shizune answered, Naruko is gone. The Anbu captain's voice betrayed his surprise, but how? My squad and I have been keeping watch over her apartment the entire time. We never saw her leave. We even checked on her an hour ago when we peered through the window and saw her asleep in her bed. You most likely saw that in her bed, Shizune replied, pointing at a life-size papier-mâché figure of Naruko on the floor. Naruko probably had a secret escape route, just in case. You all know how resourceful she can be. All four Anbu nodded in agreement. Would you like us to search for her and try to find her? Asked the Anbu captain. Why bother? Naruko is probably long gone by now. She's going to be banished tomorrow anyway. Let her have a head start. Even if you bring her back, the council will just make a spectacle of her tomorrow in front of the village. I, for one, don't want to see that, Shizune said. The Anbu squad nodded, not wanting to witness such a scene either. You can all go now, Shizune ordered. The squad acknowledged with a hi and left. As they departed, Shizune couldn't help but gaze up at the night sky, wondering where Naruko might be. Please be safe, Naruko, Shizune thought, then moved over to the two grieving women, attempting to offer them comfort. As she did, she placed the note Naruko had left on the kitchen table. It simply read one word, goodbye. Outside Konoha. On a hill overlooking the village, a lone figure stood, gazing at it for the last time. My old life in Konoha is over, and a new one will begin outside it. But just you wait, Konoha. I vow, in the name of my mother, Uzumaki Kushina, I'll become strong. I'll become stronger than anyone, and when I do, you'll regret banishing me. That's a promise that will last a lifetime. Believe it, Naruko thought, before turning her back on the village and walking into the night. Some time later. It had been a while since Naruko left Konoha. She had ventured in a random direction, not particularly caring where she was heading. She had considered going to Suna, but that would have caused complications for Gaara. He might not even welcome her, as she had been one of the reasons why their invasion had failed. Even though Suna had been tricked into it, they still faced heavy losses and a humiliating defeat. On top of that, Naruko would bring the Akatsuki to their doorstep. While Gaara was also a Jinchuriki, he could defend himself and his village, which was surrounded by sand. Naruko, on the other hand, couldn't use chakra and would only complicate matters for Gaara. She didn't want to do that to her friend. She thought about going to Taki to visit her friend Shibuki, the leader there, but again, she didn't want to cause trouble for him. Just like Suna, Taki's alliance with Konoha was important. Naruko also considered going to Haru/Yuki no Kuni, Spring/Snow Country, confident that Lady Koyuki would welcome her. However, she knew the country was far away, and she didn't have the money to travel there by ship. She also realized that the Akatsuki would find her there eventually, which would endanger Lady Koyuki and her people. Wave or the Land of Tea, where she could work with the Wagarashi clan, might have been good options. But Naruko knew that eventually, the Akatsuki would track her down, and she didn't want to put Wave or the Wagarashi clan in danger. Ultimately, the issue always came down to the same conclusion: the Akatsuki would find her eventually, and that would put the people she cared about in danger. Naruko had thought about seeking refuge in another ninja village that didn't have ties to Konoha, in the hopes of finding a way to remove the seals on her and get protection if she agreed to become one of their ninja. However, after considering villages like Ame, Kuza, and Hoshi, she realized they were small and not strong enough to protect her from the Akatsuki. She needed to be with one of the 5 great shinobi villages to stand a chance. Kiri was out of the question, especially after hearing about their ongoing civil war. Naruko also heard how people with bloodlines were treated there, and she wanted no part of that. Iwa was also a dangerous choice, as anyone who found out where she was from or who her parents were would likely harm her. That left Kumo, but Naruko didn't trust that village, especially after hearing how they attempted to kidnap Hinata. She didn't have a high opinion of them. So, she decided that her only option was to wander alone, searching for a way to remove the seals and continue training with the scrolls she had taken from her family home. Naruko found herself in a dense forest during a heavy rainstorm, trying to find shelter. She had run out of food days ago and had no luck hunting. She didn't dare visit a town, fearing that the Akatsuki or their agents might spot her. Eventually, Naruko collapsed onto the wet ground, weak from exhaustion and hunger. So, this is how it ends. Not how I envisioned it, but I suppose it could be worse, Naruko thought sadly as she began to slip into unconsciousness. But she forced herself to wake up. No. I still have my goal to accomplish. I can't give up. I won't give up. She thought, struggling to get up, only to collapse again. As she drifted in and out of consciousness, she heard the sound of small bells. Looking up, she saw two figures approaching. Despite the darkness, she could make out that both were wearing conical straw hats with small spikes hanging down, covering their faces. They also wore dark cloaks with high collars that concealed their features. One word entered her mind as she lost consciousness. Akatsuki. They had found her. As Naruko drifted in and out of consciousness, she faintly heard the chiming of small bells. She looked up, and through the rain, two figures emerged, moving toward her. Even though the light was dim, Naruko could make out a few details about the figures. They wore conical straw hats with small spike-like balls hanging down to obscure their faces, and their dark cloaks, with high collars, concealed their identities. One word flashed in Naruko's mind before she lost consciousness. Akatsuki. They had found her. 10 years later. In the middle of the ocean. Far out on the sea, between Chano Kuni, Tea Country, and the islands of Nagi and Ouzu, a royal ship belonging to the daimyo of Umi no Kuni, Sea Country, sailed steadily toward Tsuki no Kuni, Moon Country. Aboard the vessel was the daimyo's only daughter, Princess Sachi, as well as the ship's crew. Princess Sachi was known for her beauty, not through excessive adornment but through a natural, graceful elegance. She wore a simple purple kimono, tied at the waist with a red sash. Her raven black hair cascaded down to her thighs, and her bright, sky-blue eyes held a serene, thoughtful expression. Though many suitors had come from across various lands to win her favor, Sachi remained uninterested in pursuing any romantic relationships, preferring to dedicate herself to her studies. Rather than attending parties or focusing on appearances, Sachi spent her time reading poetry, writing, and learning as much as she could about governance. While her older brother, Tashihiko, was next in line to rule Umi no Kuni, Sachi believed in contributing to the well-being of her country. She believed in diplomacy, preferring peace and communication above all else. Her father had often called upon her skills in negotiations with other countries. Sachi's destination was Tsuki no Kuni, where she had been promised in marriage to Crown Prince Tsuki Hikaru, the heir to the throne. Though the two had met many times over the years, their bond had grown stronger with each meeting. Initially brought together due to the alliance between Tsuki no Kuni and Umi no Kuni, Sachi and Hikaru's friendship blossomed into love. Their relationship was nurtured over time, with letters and visits exchanged. Their parents had agreed to an arranged marriage when the two were just children, believing that the union would solidify the alliance between their nations. Despite the formal agreement, Sachi and Hikaru's affection for each other was genuine, and both looked forward to their future together. The wedding was to take place in Tsuki no Kuni, with Sachi arriving 2 months ahead of the ceremony to help prepare for the event and to acclimate herself to her new role as the future queen. While her father had initially intended to send a large fleet and many royal guards to ensure Sachi's safety during the journey, she had convinced him to send a more modest group, 1 ship, 20 royal guards, and a team of Konoha ninjas for added protection. The princess enjoyed spending her time aboard the ship, often reading books or watching the Konoha ninjas practice their techniques. At times, she couldn't help but feel that the journey was turning out to be quite uneventful. Oh, how wrong she was. On the bow of the ship. At the bow of the ship, standing tall and looking toward the endless horizon, was a graceful woman with raven black hair and vivid crimson eyes. She wore a single red sleeve and white patterned bandages, with a ninja fishnet shirt beneath. This woman was none other than Yuhi Sarutobi Kurenai, Konoha's esteemed genjutsu expert and the leader of this important mission. The mission was critical for the village, as Konoha had recently faced many challenges, with rising threats from enemies. A successful marriage between the Princess of Umi no Kuni and the Prince of Tsuki no Kuni would strengthen the already solid trade alliance between the two countries, and in turn, improve Konoha's position with both nations. If successful, this mission could also lead to a trade treaty with both nations, opening up new opportunities for Konoha to gain vital resources and establish new connections. As Kurenai stood there, contemplating the vast sea ahead, her thoughts wandered back to the events of the past decade. So much had changed, and it all began when Konoha had made the difficult decision to banish a certain young ninja, Naruko Uzumaki. The news of Naruko's departure had sparked a great deal of controversy, especially among the civilian members of the Konoha Council, who had wanted to make a public spectacle of her. However, other council members, indifferent to how she left as long as she was gone, allowed her departure to pass without much attention. In the aftermath, the news broke that Naruko was no longer a citizen of Konoha, and the law enacted by the Sandaime Hokage concerning her was officially annulled. The younger generation now knew of Naruko's status as a Jinchuriki, and their reactions varied. Some were influenced by their parents' views and saw her as a dangerous being, while others, who had known Naruko personally, saw her as a person who had suffered much at the hands of the village. This news, of course, had a profound effect on the former members of the Konoha 12. Shino, for example, expressed newfound respect for Naruko, acknowledging the immense burden she carried as a Jinchuriki. Neji, too, found a deeper understanding of Naruko's struggles, realizing that her burden was even heavier than his own, due to his curse seal. Lee, with his typical enthusiasm, praised Naruko's ability to carry such a burden while remaining upbeat, vowing to strengthen his own resolve and flames of youth in her honor. Hinata, upon learning the truth, was heartbroken, realizing just how much Naruko must have endured. She regretted never having been able to help her. Hinata later confided in Kurenai, revealing that she had gone to visit Naruko before her departure to confess her feelings but arrived only to find Naruko had already left. Kurenai empathized deeply with the young girl, understanding her grief. The opinions of the rest of the Konoha 12 remained largely unchanged. Most of them, including Konohamaru and his friends, still considered Naruko a dear friend, even after learning of her true nature as a Jinchuriki. The only notable dissent came from Ino, much to her father's dismay, and Sakura. They held on to the belief that Naruko was dangerous, a view echoed by Sasuke, who boasted that Naruko could never have defeated him without the power of the Kyuubi. Shikamaru quickly put Sasuke in his place, pointing out that, despite the power Naruko wielded, she had still managed to defeat him, a feat Sasuke could not dismiss, no matter the circumstances. The announcement of Naruko's banishment had been met with mixed reactions. Civilians and some ninjas, particularly lower-ranking ones, celebrated her departure. However, Tsunade quickly intervened, arresting many who were disturbing the peace and putting a halt to the celebrations. She emphasized that the village was still under a state of emergency and that no celebrations would be allowed until the situation improved. In the wake of Naruko's banishment, Konohamaru and his team had been responsible for a year-long campaign of pranks that targeted those who had been unkind to Naruko, including many council members. These pranks varied in nature, from harmless sticky bombs in stores to more elaborate schemes, such as releasing dogs from the Inuzuka kennels. The pranks were a form of protest, sending a message to those who had wronged Naruko, and they became legendary for their creativity and audacity. Kurenai couldn't help but smile as she remembered these pranks, particularly the one involving Konohamaru and his team using a catapult to launch old baby diapers at the civilian council, disrupting their celebration of Naruko's banishment. Despite the challenges the village had faced, these small acts of rebellion had lightened the mood and kept hope alive for some. As she stood on the bow of the ship, looking out over the sea, Kurenai reflected on the past with mixed emotions. The pain of seeing Naruko leave Konoha had been hard to bear, but she also saw the growth and resilience of the village, and perhaps, the possibility of new beginnings. The future was uncertain, but Kurenai hoped that, one day, Naruko could find peace, and that Konoha could learn to see her for the person she truly was. Konohamaru and her team had even managed to get the help of the Chunin Izumo and Kotetsu for their playful pranks, which, as Kurenai later discovered, stemmed from their friendship with Naruko and shared love for pranks. With their help, they set up a bubblegum bomb in council member Hojo Akira's office. When Akira entered, the bomb went off, causing him to get stuck to the wall. It took until the following day to remove him, and his hair had been so coated in bubblegum that they had to shave his head clean. He was also left with scratches and marks from the gum being removed. The next target was Kakashi. Izumo and Kotetsu had told him about a bar called the Blue Oyster, claiming it had great sake at low prices. When Kakashi visited, he realized it was a gay bar, and worse, it was the night of the Hatake Kakashi fan club's annual gathering. Kakashi's shrieks were heard throughout the village that night. Once caught, the fan club spent the evening dancing the tango with him, and each member took turns dancing with the copy ninja. To make matters worse, Izumo and Kotetsu managed to get photos of the event and plastered them all over the village, capturing Kakashi in various compromising situations. This led to Kakashi gaining even more attention from fans, particularly yaoi enthusiasts, and it made it difficult for him to walk through the village without feeling awkward around certain onlookers. Kurenai couldn't help but chuckle when recalling Kakashi's misfortune, finding some amusement in his discomfort, as she thought he deserved it. Another target of the pranks was council member Ashikaga Shin, who had several skunks secretly placed in his briefcase. When he opened it, the chaos was immediate, and for weeks no one wanted to be near him. However, the ramen chief, Tenchi, eventually confronted Shin and punched him, resulting in a broken nose and black eyes. Ino was next. Prankster swapped her bubble bath with green dye, and when she looked in the mirror, she let out a loud, mortified scream that could be heard across the village. It took 3 weeks for the dye to wear off, and throughout that time, members of the Konoha 12 joked about how the dye made her blend in with the flowers in her family's shop, or how it would improve her camouflage in the forest. Sasuke was also a victim of these mischievous pranks. At some point, the group slipped a sleeping pill into his food, and when he awoke, his house was entirely painted pink, inside and out. His usual clothes had been replaced with ones that had playful slogans like "I love men and kiss me, I'm fabulous." They even dyed his hair pink and switched his underwear to frilly ones with hearts and teddy bears. When Sasuke walked around the village the next morning, wearing a shirt that read "Gei Uchiha's Rule," he became the subject of much attention from his fan club, receiving letters of admiration and marriage proposals. The Kurama clan fell victim to pranks as well when Konohamaru and her friends TP'd the entire clan compound one night, covering it with toilet paper. Council member Asai Hata later became the target of another prank, when the group managed to infest his new home with rats, mice, cockroaches, termites, and spiders. The infestation took a great deal of money and time to clear up, and the damage was so extensive that Hata's mansion had to be completely refurbished. He had to replace all his furniture, which ended up costing him a significant amount of money. Rumor had it that Hata was so distraught that he broke down when he learned how much it would cost to fix everything. Konohamaru's pranks continued to cause trouble. She and her friends even managed to release an army of over 1,000 hungry rabbits on Amako Taichi's fields, devouring all his crops and costing him an entire year's worth of profits. He was left to deal with the aftermath and had a significant meltdown over the loss. The Hyuga clan faced one of the most embarrassing pranks when Konohamaru snuck into their compound and stole all of their underwear, from boxers to bras, and hung them up all over the village. The sight of the Hyuga clan members, including Hyashi, having to retrieve their unmentionables from public view was a source of much amusement for the villagers. Kurenai remembered how Hyashi's face turned bright red as he had to climb the Hokage tower to retrieve his boxers, which had been hoisted up as a flag. The laughter continued for days, with many of the clan heads, even those who usually maintained their composure, bursting out in laughter at Hyashi's misfortune. Kurenai couldn't help but laugh at the prank on the Hyuga clan, as it had become the talk of the village. Even Asuma had remarked that Tsume couldn't hold back her laughter during council meetings, and even the usually stoic Shibi and Onbu commander had chuckled. When Kurenai asked Konohamaru how she had pulled it off, the young prankster simply smiled and said, "A true prankster never reveals their secrets." About a month after Naruko's banishment, Uchiha Sasuke underwent a trial for attempting to leave the village and join one of Konoha's adversaries, the snake Sannin Orochimaru. During the trial, the civilian council hired the top litigators in Konoha to represent Sasuke's case. They argued that Sasuke's actions were influenced by the mental trauma he experienced after the massacre of the Uchiha clan, as well as the negative effects of the curse seal Orochimaru had placed on him. They maintained that Sasuke could not be held fully accountable for his actions at that time because it had been proven that the curse seal could impair someone's mental state and judgment. They referenced Anko, who suffered memory loss due to her own curse seal, and Sasuke's teammate, Haruno Sakura, who reported that Sasuke was not acting like himself when he first used the curse seal after his battle with Orochimaru in the Forest of Death. However, some argued that if Sasuke's mental state was truly in question, he should no longer be considered a ninja. The defense countered by noting that Jiraiya had sealed the curse seal upon Sasuke's return to the village, ensuring there was no longer any danger of him leaving. They also stressed that Konoha could not appear weak, particularly after the invasion of Suna and Ado. The Uchiha clan's presence was essential for maintaining the village's strength, and no one could easily dismiss that argument. The trial was viewed as a mockery by many ninjas, as it seemed clear that the civilians were siding with Sasuke. If Sasuke had been punished properly, the civilian council would have caused an uproar, potentially weakening Konoha further. It was decided that Sasuke would not be executed or imprisoned, but would remain a ninja. However, he would be prohibited from being promoted for 3 years, would have a tracking seal placed on him by Jiraiya, and would be under house arrest with Anbu monitoring him at all times. He would not be allowed to leave the village alone, and if he had to leave, he would need to be accompanied by 1, 2, or 3 Jonin ninjas. Additionally, Sasuke was forbidden from using the curse seal again. If he did, the consequences would be immediate and severe. The civilian council members attempted to object, but Tsunade firmly upheld the ruling, as Sasuke was a Konoha ninja and had to be punished for attempting to defect, regardless of his reasons. While the civilians couldn't contest Tsunade's decision, many ninjas felt that Sasuke was getting off too easily, considering what others would face for similar actions. Even though Sasuke might have been angered by Tsunade's ruling, many saw it as insufficient for his actions. 3 months after Naruko's banishment, Jiraiya returned to the village, intending to take Naruko on a training trip. He had been unaware of her banishment, having left the village just before the council made the decision. Upon hearing the news from Tsunade, Jiraiya became furious and tried to confront the council members responsible for Naruko's banishment. It took Tsunade and a dozen Anbu members to restrain him from doing something rash. Once calm, Jiraiya declared his intention to find Naruko, but the council blocked his path, stating they would not allow him to do so. When Jiraiya reminded them that, as a ninja, he answered only to the Hokage, Koharu countered by claiming that his search for Naruko would interfere with their plans concerning the Akatsuki. They argued that since it involved the safety of the village, they had the authority to prevent him from going after her. When Jiraiya pressed for more details, he was told that the council would explain their plans when the time was right. In response to council member Hojo Akira suggesting that Jiraiya train Sasuke instead, Jiraiya reacted sharply, punching him in the stomach and sending him flying across the room. He stated, "You may be able to stop me from finding Naruko, but you will never force me to train that ungrateful child," before storming out of the room. Kurenai later learned from Shizune that Jiraiya had tried to locate Naruko through his contacts and sources, as well as using the Toad Summon contract that Naruko had signed. Unfortunately, Jiraiya's efforts were unsuccessful. The Toad Summons, though they confirmed Naruko was alive at the time, were unable to track her or reverse summon her due to an unknown issue in their connection. 4 months after Naruko's banishment, the news spread to other countries, causing widespread anger and frustration. When Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, learned of Naruko's banishment, they were deeply upset. The hero of their country being banished for something beyond her control was seen as unjust. In response, they sent a message to Konoha, informing them that they were annulling the recent trade treaty and would cease all trade. They also declared that all merchant and transport ships controlled by Nami no Kuni would no longer work with or trade with Konoha. Furthermore, all missions originally intended for Konoha were to be redirected to Suna. This caused Konoha considerable trouble, as Nami no Kuni was strategically important for trade with several other nations. To make matters worse, after the fall of the ruthless businessman Gato, the people of Nami no Kuni took control of his shipping company, significantly increasing their influence over the central elemental sea trading industry. This action severely disrupted Konoha's economic structure. Asuma shared with Kurenai that when Ashikaga Shin and Amako Taichi learned of Nami no Kuni's decision, they were stunned. They realized how much this would harm their business interests. Konoha sent 3 different delegations to try to reopen negotiations, but each was sent away without success. The final delegation even received a warning from the representative of Nami no Kuni, Tazuna, stating, "If any Konoha ninja or person ever sets foot here again, they will be sent back in a box, and we will place a full embargo on your village." This message had the intended effect, and Konoha ceased further attempts. The next country to respond was Cha no Kuni, Tea Country. Jirocho, leader of the Wasabi clan, used his influence over the daimyo to redirect all missions to Suna instead of Konoha. Jirocho had met Naruko on a few occasions and had been impressed by her. He had also appreciated her role in helping them defeat the Wagarashi clan and win the shrine race. Knowing how important Naruko had been to Tsunade, Jirocho felt her banishment was unjust. He also banned trade with Konoha at Digarashi port, which was a significant trading location for Konoha. This decision greatly impacted Konoha, as Cha no Kuni had been a major client, and losing their support meant a significant loss in missions and revenue. Another country that reacted strongly to Naruko's banishment was Haru/Yuki no Kuni, Spring/Snow Country. When Lady Daimyo Kazahana Koyuki learned what had happened, she was furious with Konoha. She personally traveled to Konoha with 200 samurai and 12 Yunki ninja, demanding a meeting with both the Hokage and the council. She expressed her outrage for 20 minutes, condemning Konoha for banishing the hero of Yuki no Kuni due to their prejudice against the Kyuubi. She then informed them that she was annulling the alliance between Konoha and both Haru/Yuki no Kuni and Yukigakure no Sato, the village hidden in the snow, a village she had maintained control over. Additionally, she ended all technology trade agreements with Konoha, including advanced technology that Haru/Yuki no Kuni had been planning to share. This decision severely impacted Konoha, especially since many members of the council, like Danzo and Koharu, had been eager to access the advanced technologies, including chakra armor and volley guns, to strengthen the village. Despite the council's attempts to persuade Lady Koyuki to reverse her decision, she remained firm in her stance. She also told Jiraiya that she would not participate in the Icha Icha Paradise movie, and even promised to ensure that it would never be made, which caused both Jiraiya and Kakashi to suffer a major shock. Lady Koyuki left the village shortly thereafter, no longer wishing to remain in Konoha. Soon after, Shibuki, the leader of Takigakure no Sato, the village hidden in the waterfall, arrived in Konoha accompanied by 2 squads of Jonin-level shinobi. He formally requested an audience with the Hokage. Based on what Shizune had shared with Kurenai, Shibuki was deeply disappointed with how the Hidden Leaf had treated Naruko, simply because she was a Jinchuriki. He expressed heartfelt concern and frustration, emphasizing that Naruko had once been a dear friend and mentor, someone who had taught him valuable lessons about leadership and strength. More importantly, Naruko was regarded as a hero in Takigakure, having bravely defended the village from a dangerous attempt to seize control by Suin and his group. She had protected the hero water and, by extension, the people. Shibuki stated that in his village, their Jinchuriki, Fu, was cherished as both a guardian and a friend. The villagers of Takigakure held no prejudice against her. He went on to inform Tsunade that, after careful discussion with both the council and the citizens of Takigakure, they had made the difficult decision to dissolve their alliance with Konoha. With that, Shibuki respectfully ended the meeting and departed, leaving Konoha with fewer allied villages. With both Takigakure and Yukigakure withdrawing their support, the hidden sand village, Sunagakure, remained Konoha's sole official ally among the shinobi nations. This situation, however, did not remain static for long. About a year after Naruko's banishment, Sunagakure appointed its new Kazekage, Sabaku no Gara, the Jinchuriki of Shukaku, the one-tailed beast. Upon learning what had happened to Naruko, Gara was deeply disturbed. The emotional impact was so great that he spent the day outside the village, unintentionally creating a sandstorm that extended over 20 miles, as Kurenai later heard from some Suna shinobi. Although Gara felt powerless at the time, once he became Kazekage, he began to challenge Konoha's political decisions. He gradually removed Sunagakure's obligations from the alliance agreement, reducing it to a minimal clause where both villages would only cooperate in the event of a mutual threat. While Suna and Konoha remained allies in name, the relationship between them was strained. Meanwhile, Suna regained its strength through support from its daimyo and took on new missions from neighboring countries like the Land of Tea and the Land of Waves. A year after Naruko's departure, there was still no sign of her. Jiraiya had confirmed through the toads that she was alive somewhere, but her whereabouts remained unknown. During that year, Kurenai's personal life saw some change. She and Asuma were married. However, news of Naruko eventually resurfaced. After completing a mission, a team of Jonin stumbled upon a forest clearing that appeared to have been the site of an intense clash. Trees were toppled, scorch marks covered the ground, and there were unusual black flames that resisted even water-based jutsu. Among the evidence they found was a torn black cloak patterned with red clouds, as well as a damaged orange jacket. When the team brought these items back to Tsunade, a comparison of trace evidence revealed unsettling results. The samples from the cloak matched Uchiha Itachi, while the damaged orange jacket had traces belonging to Naruko. This strongly suggested that Naruko had encountered members of the Akatsuki. Tsunade immediately summoned Jiraiya and attempted to organize a mission to locate and bring Naruko home safely. Kurenai, who was among the team assembled, alongside Kakashi, Asuma, and Guy, was prepared to act quickly. However, their efforts were delayed when Danzo and Koharu intervened. The elders claimed that any rescue attempt would interfere with their broader plan to neutralize the Akatsuki. They then revealed a hidden plan, during the sealing process to limit Naruko's chakra usage and prevent her from revealing village secrets. An additional seal had been applied. This secondary seal, created by Danzo's top sealing specialists, was designed to activate during the extraction of the Nine Tails chakra. It would release an overwhelming surge of energy that would impact the surrounding area, effectively neutralizing anyone nearby, including the Akatsuki members. Danzo intended to present this as a strategic defense measure that would boost Konoha's image and deter future threats from other villages. They further claimed that by the time the rescue team arrived, it would already be too late. This rationale, however, was deeply upsetting to both Tsunade and Jiraiya. Kurenai remembered the moment vividly. The emotions in the room were overwhelming: disbelief, heartbreak, and frustration. The team had to step in to calm the situation and prevent any rash actions, as tensions were running high. Even Onbu operatives arrived on the scene due to the sheer intensity of Tsunade and Jiraiya's emotional response. Eventually, both Sannin managed to restrain themselves. Despite their sorrow, they understood that confronting the elders would not change the past. In the end, they simply stood in silence, overwhelmed with emotion as the gravity of the situation settled in. About a week after finding Naruko's abandoned jacket, there had still been no sign of any kind of disturbance or incident. Naturally, this raised a great deal of concern among the council, especially after Tsunade and Jiraiya were informed of Danzo and Koharu's prior plans. Once this information was shared, most of the clan heads, along with Homura, directed disappointed looks at the two elders, expressing clear disapproval of their actions. Even Danzo and Koharu began to show concern due to the complete lack of reports or evidence indicating what had happened. It wasn't until Jiraiya reached out to the Toad Summons that the truth surfaced. They explained that Naruko's contract with them had ended. This led to two possible conclusions. One was that during the confrontation with Itachi, Naruko might have been caught in a technique unintentionally. The other, more likely theory was that the Akatsuki had discovered and removed Danzo's seal before anything irreversible occurred. Regardless of the exact events, one fact remained: Danzo and Koharu's plan had failed, and Naruko was no longer present in the village. Jiraiya, overwhelmed by the situation, left the village for a time to find some peace, while Tsunade secluded herself in her office. Her quiet sorrow was felt throughout the village. When news of Naruko's absence reached the villagers and other shinobi, some individuals reacted inappropriately, expressing misplaced relief. A brief celebration began, but it was short-lived. Tsunade, hearing the commotion, made her way to the village square. With a heavy heart, she brought her fist down onto the ground, causing a tremor that silenced the crowd. Her powerful presence and unspoken words made it clear that such disrespect toward Naruko's memory would not be tolerated. She returned to her office, leaving the square in stunned silence, seeking solitude in her grief. Kurenai often thought back to that day with sadness. She remembered when she, Asuma, and Guy were tasked with telling Hinata and the others about Naruko's disappearance. Kakashi had informed them that he needed to visit the memorial stone and asked them to handle the news. When the Konoha 12 learned what had happened, the group was deeply affected. Ten openly cried for her dear friend, as did Kiba and Choji. Others like Shino, Shikamaru, and Neji quietly bowed their heads in sorrow, each choosing to process their feelings privately. Even Lee, known for his energy, became unusually quiet, speaking little for several days. Konohamaru and his team were heartbroken. Konohamaru, especially, struggled to accept the truth, though the evidence left little room for doubt. Even Sakura and Ino, who had grown closer in their understanding of Naruko over the past several months, were moved by the news. Asuma later shared that Ino's change of heart stemmed from an argument she had with Shikamaru. After she spoke insensitively about Naruko, Shikamaru became visibly upset and told her how Naruko had been a devoted and brave ninja who deserved respect. He reminded her that being a true ninja meant more than appearance or chasing admiration; it required dedication and strength. His words deeply affected Ino, and she left in tears, reflecting on the truth in what he had said. Not long after, Ino returned with a new sense of purpose. She asked both her father and Asuma for training, determined to grow stronger, not just for herself, but for her comrades and the village. According to Shizune, Kurenai had heard that Sakura had undergone significant personal growth following a serious conversation she had with Tsunade during her medical ninjutsu training. Sakura had begun this training with Tsunade prior to Naruko's departure from the village, but nearly discontinued it upon hearing about what had happened to Naruko and reflecting on her own actions and words toward her. During a particularly intense training session, Sakura made a critical mistake that could have endangered a patient. Tsunade took the matter seriously and firmly addressed Sakura's lapse. In the heat of the moment, Sakura responded emotionally, accusing Tsunade of blaming her for Naruko's situation and calling Naruko a threat to the village. This outburst was deeply upsetting to Tsunade, who took the opportunity to challenge Sakura's mindset and misguided assumptions. Shizune later shared with Kurenai that Tsunade's words had a profound impact on Sakura, forcing her to reevaluate her beliefs and recognize how wrong she had been. Tsunade temporarily dismissed her from training, instructing her to return only when she had truly understood her actions. A few days later, Sakura returned with genuine remorse, humbly apologizing and expressing her desire to change and become stronger, not only to correct her past mistakes, but to someday find Naruko and ask for her forgiveness. Tsunade, moved by Sakura's sincerity, agreed to continue her training, this time with even greater intensity, which Sakura accepted without complaint. Kurenai also heard that when Sakura and Ino eventually learned of Naruko's fate, both were overcome with grief, deeply regretting that they never had the chance to make amends with her. Tenchi, the ramen shop owner, and his daughter Ayame were also deeply saddened by the news. They closed the shop for several days as they mourned. Upon reopening, they honored Naruko by placing a large picture of her on the wall and creating a new ramen dish called the Uzumaki Supreme Ramen Special. It became understood among villagers that Naruko was to be spoken of with respect, especially in the presence of Ayame. One time, a customer made a disrespectful comment about Naruko and attempted to remove her photo. Ayame, deeply hurt and angered, defended the memory of Naruko with such intensity that it took several jonin to step in and calm the situation. This event left a lasting impression, and afterward, villagers, regardless of their previous views, chose to keep negative opinions to themselves out of respect, particularly around Ayame. When Iruka heard about what had happened to Naruko, he took an extended leave from the academy. He was deeply affected, spending much of his time alone, visibly unwell from lack of rest and proper meals. Friends, including Kurenai and Konohamaru, visited to support him and slowly helped him recover and return to teaching. Though he resumed his duties, many noticed he was quieter and more introspective than before, choosing not to speak about his feelings regarding Naruko's absence. Among all of Naruko's friends, Hinata was perhaps the most affected. The news overwhelmed her so deeply that she secluded herself in her room for weeks, ignoring even her father's requests. With little food and much sadness, she struggled immensely. Thankfully, her cousin Neji and younger sister Hanabi visited her daily, encouraging her to eat and talk. Their efforts, along with support from Kurenai, helped Hinata through the darkest days, reminding her that moving forward and honoring Naruko's memory was the best way to continue. The only person who did not appear to be emotionally impacted was Sasuke. When he heard the news, he responded indifferently, remarking that it was inevitable, showing no empathy or reflection. His reaction was in stark contrast to the grief and respect shown by others who had truly valued Naruko. Kurenai frowned as she recalled the first time she had heard that comment. It was hard to believe anyone could express something so emotionally detached. She also remembered when her friend Uzuki Yugao had told her about witnessing one of the Uchiha during training. Yugao mentioned overhearing him mutter about becoming stronger to confront his older sibling, Itachi, and how he seemed upset that he'd never be able to repay Naruko for their past encounter, where she had bested him in battle, which he had believed would help him unlock a rare ability. Kurenai had felt a deep sense of disappointment when she heard this, wondering how someone could seek strength in such a negative way. Not long afterward, news reached them that the Land of Waves, Nami no Kuni, was holding a memorial in Naruko's honor. Since it was understood that such a service wouldn't be held in Konoha, the people of Nami no Kuni extended invitations to several allies and dignitaries. These included the entire Wasabi clan from the Land of Tea, Lady Daimyo Koyuki of the Land of Snow, Shibuki, the leader of Takigakure, Kazekage Sabaku no Gara, along with his brother Kankuro and sister Tamari. Even Tsunade had planned to attend, accompanied by many others. However, before they could depart, a message arrived from Nami no Kuni stating that visitors from Konoha were not permitted to attend the memorial, and any who tried would be escorted out. Not wanting to create conflict, Tsunade respectfully cancelled the trip. Kurenai remembered how sad it had made everyone. Shizune and Neji had told her that both Hinata and Tsunade had cried quietly that night, mourning their inability to properly say farewell to Naruko. In the weeks that followed, Danzo used the moment to push for the reactivation of his root division. Tsunade tried to stop it, but one of the council members, Koharu, invoked a previous clause from the Wartime Emergency Act, ironically the same one Tsunade had once used to halt the celebration of Naruko's exile. It stated that in times of great threat, all military assets were to be reactivated for the protection of the village. Given the danger posed by the Akatsuki, and concerns that the Kyuubi might have been removed from Naruko, the council voted in favor of reactivating root under Danzo's command. Not long after, word spread that the daimyo of the Land of Lightning, Satake Dosan, along with much of his family and their personal guards, had been attacked by unknown assailants. His younger brother, Satake Yoshiaki, quickly assumed the role of daimyo. 2 months later, further shock came when the 4th Raikage was targeted in a separate incident. Although the person or group responsible was never identified, it caused concern across the 5 nations. The memory of the Third Great Shinobi War still lingered, and there were fears that another global conflict might erupt, especially as suspicions grew that an unknown power might be trying to undermine both Kumagakure and the Land of Lightning. Fortunately, the new daimyo Yoshiaki quickly appointed Imako Zankuro of the influential Imako clan as the 5th Raikage, easing some tensions. For 6 months, the situation remained calm until loyal shinobi from the previous Raikage's administration uncovered and released documents revealing a conspiracy. The materials proved that Zankuro and Yoshiaki had collaborated to remove Dosan and his family, clearing Yoshiaki's path to power. Zankuro's appointment as Raikage was part of their plan to establish dominance in both village and country, solidifying their influence. When the truth came to light, the Land of Lightning sealed its borders. A 5-year civil conflict broke out involving multiple ninja clans and factions, some loyal to the previous Raikage, others aligning with Zankuro. At the same time, influential samurai lords and noble families raised their own forces, either to challenge Yoshiaki's authority or to carve out power for themselves. This prolonged struggle deeply impacted both Kumagakure and the Land of Lightning. Kurenai's thoughts drifted to events that happened 3 years after Naruko's passing. During that time, Gaara, the 5th Kazekage, had been taken by members of the Akatsuki, Sasori of the Red Sand and Datara, an explosive specialist from Iwagakure. Sunagakure called for help, and Konoha responded by sending a team led by Kakashi, along with Sakura, Sasuke, and their new teammate Sai from Root. Guy, Tenten, Lee, and Neji also accompanied them, and they were joined by Chiyo, Sasori's grandmother and a legendary puppet master. As they pursued the captors, they were intercepted by Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame, a former member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. The teams engaged them, but later discovered they had fought copies created by an impersonation technique that replicated the originals using a small portion of their abilities. Eventually, the team reached the Akatsuki base. There they found Gaara unconscious but safe, and surprisingly, his tailed beast remained sealed inside him. The base had been completely destroyed. Around it were countless shattered puppets, some charred, some frozen, and others torn apart as if by immense force. The nearby forest was similarly devastated, with trees leveled, frozen, or uprooted. Upon examining Gaara, Chiyo discovered that his seal had been enhanced by someone with incredible sealing knowledge, granting him greater control over his powers and no longer disturbing his sleep. Even Chiyo admitted she had never seen such advanced work and praised the unknown seal master. When the team reported what had happened, both Lady Tsunade and the Konoha Council immediately ordered an investigation to determine who was responsible. Lady Tsunade even sent out Jiraiya, who had returned earlier than expected, to uncover the identity of the individuals who had rescued the Kazekage and were powerful enough to defeat Akasuna no Sasori and possibly Datara of Iwagakure. Unfortunately, Jiraiya and all other leads came up empty, leaving the mystery unsolved. The only confirmed detail was that there had been 2 individuals involved, as the battles had occurred at 2 different locations, one in a cave, and another in a forest. Kurenai often found herself reflecting on this, especially because even after 7 years, the truth remained elusive. It was shortly after that mission when Kurenai discovered she was expecting a child. She vividly remembered sharing the news with Asuma upon his return from a mission involving his former comrade Kazuma, a member of the Shogonen Junichi, 12 Guardian Ninja. Kazuma had attempted to use his own son in a misguided plan to challenge the village, having somehow channeled a vast amount of chakra during the Nine Tails incident. When Kurenai told Asuma, he was overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. Sadly, those dreams were never realized. Her heart grew heavy as she remembered the day Shikamaru delivered the heartbreaking news about Asuma. He had fallen in battle against a dangerous member of the Akatsuki named Hidan. The sorrow Kurenai felt that day was overwhelming, knowing Asuma would never return or meet their child. Not long after, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, and Kakashi set out to confront the 2 Akatsuki members. They were later joined by Yamato, Sakura, Sai, and Sasuke. Together, the group managed to destroy 4 of Kakuzu's chakra sources, and Shikamaru had set a clever trap for Hidan. However, just as they were close to achieving their goal, another Akatsuki member appeared. Introducing himself as Zetsu, he intervened, disrupting the teams long enough for Kakuzu and Hidan to escape. Ultimately, the mission was marked as unsuccessful, and the Akatsuki remained hidden for several years. Kurenai then recalled that, about 3 years after that mission, news arrived of a major shift in Kaminari no Kuni. The civil war there had ended, with the rebel factions emerging victorious. During the conflict, An unknown shinobi calling himself Denku had united the rebel Kumo forces and allied with several samurai clans opposed to Daimyo Yoshiaki. Together, they overpowered the forces of Daimyo Yoshiaki and the 5th Raikage. It was even rumored that the 5th Raikage had been defeated during the conflict. Later, Kurenai learned that the former Daimyo Yoshiaki had been exiled by the new ruler of Kaminari no Kuni, his niece Sadake Kiko. She had escaped an ambush by the Yamako clan thanks to the protection of her loyal samurai bodyguard, the renowned Naomasa Katsumoto of the Naomasa clan. With Denku's help, she was safely hidden until he restored her to her rightful position. Denku was then recognized as the 6th Raikage and given the title Raiden no Kami, the spirit of thunder and lightning, due to his incredible mastery over lightning-style techniques. A year after the civil conflict had ended, with Lady Daimyo Sadake Kicho's support, the new Raikage stabilized the region. He successfully brought together former enemies of the state, fostering unity across the country. Not long after, he forged a significant alliance with Hoshigakur, the village hidden in the stars, and Takigakur, the village hidden in the waterfall, along with their respective nations, Bear Country and Waterfall Country. The three formed a pact to support one another in all matters, from economic development to shared defense. This coalition rapidly expanded. Soon, Yuki no Kuni, the land of snow, and its village, Yukigakur, joined the alliance. They were followed by Takumi no Sato, the village of craftsmen, and Yugakur, the village hidden in hot springs, both eager to be part of the growing unity. With these new additions, the member nations agreed on a formal name for their collective, the Heavenly Alliance. Kurenai recalled Shizune mentioning how the swift growth of the Heavenly Alliance had stirred concern within Konoha's council. The alliance had quickly risen in influence, claiming a significant number of missions and establishing an impressive level of military and economic cooperation, which left the leadership of Konoha wary of its future implications. Kurenai recalled a particular morning, 2 months after the formation of the newly established Heavenly Alliance, when something unusual was discovered at the front gate of Konoha. The headgear of the Akatsuki member Kakuzu was found placed on top of his partner Hidan's triple-bladed scythe, which had been stuck into the ground upright, almost like a banner. Attached to the headgear was a note that read, "May the spirit of Sarutobi Asuma find peace, knowing that justice has been served. May his loved ones, his wife, son, nephew, and students, find comfort and closure." The note was signed with a symbol of a lightning bolt. Upon learning of the incident, the Hokage, Lady Tsunade, immediately dispatched Jiraiya to uncover who was responsible. After a few weeks, Jiraiya returned with information. The individuals responsible were from Kumagakur. The one who had taken down Kakuzu and Hidan was a mysterious shinobi known as Sorai, or Blue Lightning. Sorai had earned fame during the Civil War and received the nickname due to the remarkable speed and power she displayed, said to resemble a lightning storm. Jiraiya shared that very little was known about Sorai, even among the people of Kumagakur. Her identity remained a mystery, as she rarely appeared in public and moved too swiftly for most to even catch a glimpse of her. The few consistent details described her as wearing a bright blue trench coat adorned with black lightning bolts along the bottom, and the kanji for storm emblazoned on her back. According to Jiraiya's network, Kakuzu and Hidan had secretly entered Kaminari no Kuni, land of lightning, and attempted to capture the Jinchuriki of the Nibi no Bakoneko, two-tailed beast, while she was returning from a mission. As they attempted to leave the country, Sorai intercepted them and defeated them. This revelation understandably caused concern among Tsunade and the Konoha Council. It was now clear that Kumagakur and the Heavenly Alliance were emerging as significant military powers, particularly given their alliance with powerful Jinchuriki such as those of the two-tailed beast, the eight-tailed ox, and the seven-tailed beetle. Moreover, Sorai's strength in overcoming two highly dangerous rogue shinobi simultaneously solidified her reputation. The leader of Kumagakur, the Rakudaime Raikage, was also regarded with caution and respect due to his incredible power and influence. One story, though unconfirmed, had gained widespread attention. Near the end of the civil war in Kaminari no Kuni, it was said that the former daimyo Yoshiaki requested reinforcements from Mizu no Kuni, land of water, and Kirigakur, hidden mist village. In response, 50 ships carrying a combined force of 8,000 warriors and 2,000 shinobi were dispatched. However, the fleet never returned. Weeks later, only one shinobi was said to have returned, injured and exhausted, claiming that a single individual, known as Denku, the Rakudaime Raikage, had created a colossal storm that decimated the entire fleet. Although this account was never officially confirmed, it fueled rumors and heightened caution across the shinobi world. The leader of Kirigakur reportedly held a long-standing grudge due to the event. As Kurenai gazed out at the sea, she reflected on how much had changed in just 2 years. The Heavenly Alliance had grown significantly, with numerous countries either joining or aligning themselves with it. Nations such as the Marsh Country, Bird Country, Demon Country, Red Bean Jam Country, Tea Country, Honey Country, and Vegetable Country had officially joined the alliance. Others, including the Moon Country, Fang Country, Claw Country, and Neck Country, had chosen to support the alliance without becoming formal members. The most surprising shift, however, was when the traditionally neutral Iron Country chose to align itself with the Heavenly Alliance. Lord Mifune, leader of the Iron Country, clarified in letters to all the major nations that the partnership was based on trade and mutual defense. Iron Country would only take action if a member of the alliance was attacked without provocation and had no intention of initiating conflict or violating other nations' sovereignty. Still, the decision to abandon neutrality demonstrated just how influential and respected the Heavenly Alliance had become, especially through the leadership of Kumogakure. Despite the challenges it had faced during its civil war, Kumo had not only recovered but had grown stronger, becoming a cornerstone of this powerful alliance. As Kurenai reflected on the rising tension across the shinobi nations, her thoughts drifted back to a critical moment, when the Konoha Council had dispatched several of their top infiltration specialists into the Land of Lightning to gather intelligence on the growing power of the Heavenly Alliance and the military strength of Kumogakure. Unfortunately, their mission had ended prematurely. They were discovered by Kumo shinobi just after crossing the border and sent back to Konoha with a clear message: do not attempt such actions again. That incident marked the beginning of a series of events that led to the current conflict, what would come to be known as the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. As the Heavenly Alliance began to unite, Orochimaru, unwilling to be left behind, began forming his own coalition. After his failed effort to gain the power of Uchiha Sasuke's Sharingan, Orochimaru sought new means to increase his influence. He quietly built a new army, larger than the one he had used during his first assault on Konoha, and reached out to other nations that held long-standing grievances against the Hidden Leaf. Iwagakure was among the first to join, their historical tensions with Konoha making them a natural ally for Orochimaru's plans. Kusagakure followed soon after, fueled by long-standing rivalry and aspirations to rise among the five great nations. Then came the Hanya clan from the Land of Forests, believed to have been disbanded after past conflicts with Konoha's former covert operations. Their alliance was driven by a desire for justice and recognition. Finally, Kirigakure joined the coalition under a Mizukage intent on expanding influence throughout the elemental continent. Konoha, with only a handful of allies and support from Sunagakure, knew it faced great difficulty. When war was declared, the odds were heavily against them. The war had only officially begun 2 months ago, and although there had been no full-scale battles yet, several important skirmishes had taken place across key territories in the Land of Fire. Fortunately, Konoha had prevailed in most of them. Sunagakure's alliance had proven crucial, as they had their own reasons for standing against Orochimaru, chiefly a desire to restore honor after past betrayals and deceptions. Even so, Kurenai understood the long-term challenges. Konoha was stretched thin, lacking in both resources and funding. That made their current mission, escorting Princess Sachi to the Land of the Moon, especially vital. A potential trade alliance with both the Land of the Sea and the Land of the Moon could bring much-needed support. Turning her gaze away from the distant sea, Kurenai looked over the ship's main deck, where her team was stationed. 2 of them were practicing sparring techniques while the third sat nearby reading a medical text. Her team, composed of Akimichi Choji, Rock Lee, and Haruno Sakura, were all of Jonin rank. As the most senior member, Kurenai led the mission. Watching Lee and Choji spar brought a thoughtful smile to her face. The former members of the Konoha 12 had all grown tremendously since the time of Naruko's departure. Though many had changed, Kurenai noted how certain traits remained the same, especially among Guy's team. Lee, in particular, was nearly identical in spirit and appearance to his mentor, Guy. He still wore the signature green jumpsuit and vest, symbolizing his dedication. While some doubted he would rise beyond the level of Tokubutsu Jonin, Lee defied expectations. Despite being unable to use chakra-based techniques, his determination propelled him to the rank of Jonin and mastery over all 8 inner gates. Few could match him in physical combat, including his own mentor. Lee had earned the affectionate title Konoha's second proud green beast, a testament to his strength and dedication. Yet perhaps the most heartwarming chapter of Lee's story was his relationship with Kurama Yakumo, Kurenai's former student. With the help of Tsunade and Jiraiya, Yakumo had been healed and freed from the burdens that once held her back. Seeking physical training to improve her skills, she found an encouraging partner in Lee. Through shared goals and mutual understanding, the two grew close. They eventually began dating and married at the age of 18. Yakumo later joined the Anbu Interrogation Division, where her unique genjutsu talents made her a top contributor. 3 years after their wedding, she gave birth to a daughter, Rock Kurama Fuku. With her mother's features and her father's spirited nature, Fuku quickly became the joy of Lee's life. Kurenai fondly remembered the day Fuku was born. Lee had fainted upon hearing the news and, once awake, raced through the village in pure happiness, proudly announcing his daughter's arrival. Fuku was now 2 years old and already adored by many. Lee and Yakumo had even named Kurenai and Guy as Fuku's godparents, a gesture that deeply moved Kurenai. Guy, ever passionate, declared he would help guide Fuku into becoming the next proud green beast of Konoha. Of course, this led to a humorous moment where both Yakumo and Kurenai firmly warned him and Lee not to overdo their enthusiasm. Their pointed reminder was enough to convince the men to tone down their fiery declarations, for now. Neji had matured significantly over the years. Although he remained true to some of his core traits, much had changed since Naruko's passing. Within 3 years, Neji advanced through the ranks quickly and became a jonin. His skill with the gentle fist technique reached the level of his uncle, Hyuga, who was considered the most proficient user of the gentle fist in their clan at the time. Neji even developed several original techniques that demonstrated both creativity and strength. As time passed, he gained recognition as one of Konoha's most accomplished jonin and earned the nickname Higyu Shiroi, White Strike, known for always wearing white robes during missions and his remarkable ability to incapacitate opponents with a single move. Neji had briefly dated Ten, but after some time, the two decided to remain close friends. Eventually, Neji began a relationship with a young woman from his clan, and the two became engaged. Ten herself experienced a transformation after Naruko's passing. She grew more focused on her training, diversifying her skills beyond weaponry to include both taijutsu and ninjutsu. Although weapons remained her specialty, she worked hard to grow in other areas. She sought out Guy-sensei to improve her taijutsu, and later turned to Kurenai for guidance in enhancing her ninjutsu. Kurenai introduced her to Uzuki Yugao, a top swordswoman in the village, who helped Ten sharpen her kenjutsu skills. Yugao's experience made her the perfect mentor, having previously trained under Gekko Hayate. Ten's dedication led her to approach Lady Tsunade, requesting training in combat-focused medical ninjutsu. Though Tsunade limited the extent of her instruction, knowing Ten wasn't a medical nin, she still taught her a few effective techniques, including the secret behind her immense physical strength. It took Ten years to harness it correctly, but even at a basic level, it gave her a notable edge in combat. 2 years after the mission involving the 5th Kazekage, Ten was accepted into Anbu and joined the Specialized Operations Division. Her skill with blades earned her a leadership role, and she was soon known by the title Okami Ken no Konoha, Konoha's blade mistress, celebrated as the top swordswoman in the village. She later became the head of Anbu's specialized unit and was considered Konoha's foremost expert in covert operations. Despite her success, Ten chose not to pursue new romantic relationships, preferring to focus on her career and personal growth. Kurenai turned her attention to Choji during one of his sparring sessions with Lee. She couldn't help but smile gently, thinking about how much her late husband's students had matured. After Asuma's passing, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji had grown individually and together, eventually becoming known as the Neo-Ino Shika-Cho trio. Choji underwent a significant transformation. He was no longer known for his large size but for his powerful physique. He wore samurai-inspired armor and carried a massive battle axe. Choji had mastered all of his clan's techniques, which made him an ideal fit for Konoha's demolition unit, a division he would eventually lead. His ability to enlarge his body with precision enabled him to take down heavily fortified enemy structures. His skills earned him the nickname Konoha no Kyojin Keiud, Konoha's strong-armed giant. Later, he married a kind civilian woman who had worked as a chef in one of his family's restaurants, a fitting match given the Akimichi clan's appreciation for good food and kind-hearted partners. Shikamaru, though still laid back by nature, had grown more responsible over time. Deeply affected by Asuma's passing, he trained rigorously and began using Asuma's trench knives in his missions. He made a promise to himself that once Hiruzen, Asuma and Kurenai's son, became a Jinan, he would personally mentor him, just as Asuma had done for him. As the years passed, Shikamaru rose through the ranks and eventually took over his father's role as Konoha's Jonin strategic commander. The position was a perfect fit, as his tactical mind had surpassed even his father's. Many of Konoha's strategic victories were thanks to Shikamaru's leadership. He had once dated Tamari, the elder sister of the 5th Kazekage, but their relationship ended mutually due to differing personalities. Tamari, according to Ino, sought someone more energetic and proactive. Shikamaru later met Shiho from the Codebreaker unit, and the two formed a close bond. Eventually, they married. When asked why he chose Shiho, Shikamaru casually remarked, "She was the least troublesome woman I knew," though everyone understood how deeply he cared for her. They were expecting their first child, and Shikamaru shared with Kurenai that if it was a boy, they would name him Asuma, an homage that deeply touched her heart. Ino had grown significantly since her early days at the academy, where she had been more focused on admiration for Sasuke and influenced by the opinions of the village during the initial months after Naruko's departure. However, over time, she transformed in a meaningful way, especially after the passing of her mentor, Asuma, which deeply impacted her and motivated her to push herself harder. Determined to improve, Ino sought out Anko for advanced training. Though the regimen was incredibly demanding and intense, Ino persevered and emerged stronger than ever. She eventually mastered all of her clan's signature mind techniques and went on to join the Onbu's interrogation division alongside Yakumo. Due to her exceptional skill and calm demeanor, Ino became one of the unit's top interrogators and was even considered as a candidate for the next chief commander. Ino's confidence and charisma, coupled with her refined abilities, made her a natural in the field. Although some said she adopted a more eccentric and mischievous side under Anko's mentorship, Kurenai often attributed that to the close bond the two had formed during their intense training period. Years later, Ino married Sai, a former root member who took on her family name, as he had none of his own. Despite Sai's initial emotional distance, Ino's support helped him open up and heal from the traumas of his past. Through her mind techniques, she gently explored his memories, helping him process them and move forward. Their relationship blossomed, and after a year of dating, they were married and found happiness together. As Kurenai reflected on Ino's journey, she also thought about how Anko had helped others, including Iruka, during challenging times, especially after Naruko's departure. Recognizing Iruka's emotional struggles, Anko offered him support. Her own experience of being misunderstood due to her past helped her connect with Iruka, and over time, he was able to share his feelings. Their bond grew strong, and 3 years later, they were married. Anko stepped back from full-time Onbu duties and became a full-time jonin. A year into their marriage, they welcomed their daughter Aiko, a lively, spirited child who reminded many of both Anko and Naruko. Aiko had a love for sweets, a mischievous streak, and an impressive natural talent for chakra control, already mastering tree climbing and water walking at a young age. Kurenai's thoughts then turned to her nephew, Konohamaru, and how much he had matured. Inspired by Naruko's legacy, Konohamaru trained diligently, eventually requesting training in his grandfather's unique style, the Crazy Monkey Fist. He later signed the monkey summoning contract and even received training in Bojutsu from Enma. After losing several loved ones, Konohamaru was determined to grow stronger. He trained relentlessly, learning techniques passed down from his grandfather and eventually mastering the Rasengan, thanks to guidance from Jiraiya, who had recognized his potential and connection to Naruko. Konohamaru went on to develop his own unique style, the Drunken Monkey Fist, a fusion of agility, unpredictability, and power that combined elements of both the Crazy Monkey style and the drunken boxing technique taught by Lee. His movements became so unpredictable that not even the Sharingan could anticipate them. Over the next 6 years, Konohamaru rose through the ranks quickly, eventually becoming a jonin and earning the title Konoha's Monkey King. Though Enma was initially surprised by the nickname, Kurenai knew his grandfather would have been proud. Now head of the Sarutobi clan and a council member, Konohamaru was also engaged to Hanabi, Hinata's younger sister. They had started dating as chunin and both became jonin around the same time. Konohamaru's teammates, Udon and Moegi, had also grown significantly. Both had become Tokubutsu jonin. Moegi, now one of Konoha's most talented genjutsu users, had turned to Kurenai for training, refusing to study under her own grandmother, Koharu, due to lingering feelings over Naruko's departure. Udon had become a formidable fighter and strategic mind, thanks to mentorship from both Guy and Asuma. As Shikamaru's second-in-command for strategic planning, he played a vital role in the village's future. Recently, Udon and Moegi had married and were happily supporting one another in both life and duty. Kurenai's gaze shifted to Sakura, who was quietly reading a medical textbook while occasionally watching Choji and Lee spar. As she observed, Kurenai's thoughts drifted once more, this time to Team 7. And how much they had all changed in the years since Naruko's departure. Sakura had changed greatly since Naruko's banishment and departure. Like Ino, Sakura had once viewed Naruko as a threat to the village, but after a stern conversation with Tsunade, Sakura realized how misguided she had been. The words of Tsunade made her reflect on how wrong she had been, and the guilt of not being able to apologize to Naruko for her actions weighed heavily on her. However, She eventually overcame her sorrow and became more focused on improving her skills as a medic nin. By the time she was 16, she had become a chunin and a skilled medic. Her expertise became widely recognized when she helped heal Kankuro, the Kazekage's brother, after he was poisoned by Sasori. Over time, Sakura's skills as a medic continued to grow, and she eventually reached the rank of jonin. She was also appointed as assistant deputy head of the hospital, with Shizune as the deputy head and Tsunade as the head. Known as Konoha no Chiyu Sakura, the healing Sakura of Konoha, Sakura's medical abilities were considered to rival those of Tsunade, and many believed that, given a few more years, she could surpass even Tsunade. Sakura wore a standard medic nin outfit, with her usual style reflecting her dedication to her work. Like Tenten, Sakura had chosen not to pursue a relationship after seeing how dark Sasuke had become. She decided to focus all her energy on improving her medical skills. Next, there was Sai. Although Sai had not been an original member of the Konoha 12, he became part of it after Naruko's banishment. Initially distant and emotionally closed off due to his training in the root program under Danzo, Sai gradually started to open up to the others, especially after they formed a strong bond with him. Sai began to trust his new friends, and through his experiences with the Konoha 12, he started to show more emotions. Though he struggled with some painful memories from his past, he eventually found peace, with Ino using her family's mental techniques to help him heal. Sai later married Ino, and through her, he learned about Naruko's true nature, becoming interested in her and believing that he would have liked her, having lost a close friend named Shin, who had passed away. Sai often said that Naruko reminded him of Shin. Then there was Sasuke, who had become more distant and fixated on gaining power over the years. His obsession with avenging his family and seeking power led him to train under Kakashi and seek guidance from Danzo. Eventually, Sasuke gained a position on the village council, a change that hadn't happened before, as the Uchiha clan had not been involved in political matters. Sasuke's increasing desire for power became even more evident after the mission to retrieve the Kazekage, where he believed he had killed his brother Itachi, only to later learn it was not the real Itachi. This disappointment fueled Sasuke's anger even more. Over time, he joined Danzo's root program, where he became the captain of the division. Sasuke's rise to power left many in Konoha concerned, especially since some were trying to push him as Tsunade's successor. Despite all the offers from the village, Sasuke refused to marry, remaining focused solely on his quest for vengeance. Kurenai, meanwhile, reflected on the changes in her former Genin team. Out of all the members of the Konoha 12, Shino had changed the least. He remained as stoic and logical as ever, but he had risen in rank to become the chief commander of the Anbu Hunter Ninja Division. He had mastered all his clan's techniques and even created new ones of his own. Shino's quiet nature had led to surprise when he married a civilian girl who wasn't put off by his unique abilities. Kiba, though still hot-headed and brash like most Inuzuka, had matured over the years. He had learned to think before rushing into fights, surprising even his teacher, Kurenai. He had mastered all of his clan's techniques and developed new ones with his partner, Akamaru, who had grown to the size of a large bear. Kiba had risen in the ranks of Konoha as well, becoming the second in command of the Anbu Hunter Ninja Division under Shino. Despite his successes, Kiba remained single, although his efforts to date had often been complicated by his tendency to say or do something that led to awkward situations with the women he dated. Among all the members of the Konoha 12, Hinata had changed the most. After Naruko's exile, Hinata fell into a deep depression. She struggled to speak, and her training with Kurenai and her father suffered. She struggled through missions, and it seemed like the light had left her life. When she received the heartbreaking news about Naruko's passing, she locked herself away in her room for days, devastated and unsure of how to move forward. Despite this, she slowly began to heal with the help of Neji, her sister, and Kurenai. They encouraged her to keep going, to live for Naruko's memory. However, her recovery was tested during a spar with her father, which did not go well. Flashback, 3 months after Naruko's passing. Pathetic, Hiashi said coldly, watching as Hinata fell to the ground, exhausted and injured from training with him. You haven't improved your Juken in the slightest over the past year. I thought you'd do better now that that blonde Jinchuriki girl you were so fond of is gone, Hiashi continued. Hinata looked up in shock. Yes, I knew about your feelings for her. I thought her absence would make you focus more on your training, but instead, you've only gotten worse. I'm beginning to question if you'll even be able to make a decent branch member. Maybe it would have been better if you had not survived when you tried to end your life. At least then, the clan would not have to bear the shame of having you in the main house, Hiashi added, his voice dripping with disdain. Hinata's eyes widened in disbelief. If you had passed away, maybe you would be with that weak Jinchuriki girl now. She was never going to be Hokage, despite her dreams. The only reason she could defeat Neji was because of the Kyuubi chakra. Perhaps Konoha would be better off without both of you, given how much danger she was to the village, Hiashi continued, walking away without looking back. Had he turned around, he would have seen an expression on Hinata's face that no one had ever seen before, an expression of anger and resolve. Flashback ends. Kurenai, who had been nearby, overheard the conversation and was filled with rage. She had wanted to confront Hiashi, but she stayed hidden, watching as Hinata quietly endured his cruel words. When Hiashi left, Kurenai approached Hinata, but Hinata insisted she was fine, saying she was used to her father's harshness. Kurenai knew Hinata was lying, but she respected Hinata's desire to process things in her own time. Over the next few years, Hinata withdrew further from everyone, including Kurenai. She would disappear for long periods and return with injuries, claiming they were from training. Kurenai worried, but Hinata remained closed off. When Hinata turned 16, she made a shocking decision during a meeting of the Hyuga clan. She challenged Hiashi for the title of clan head. This bold move left everyone, both within the Hyuga clan and the village, stunned. Kurenai, Neji, and Hanabi tried to talk Hinata out of it, fearing she would only get hurt. But Hinata refused to back down. Even when Hiashi offered her a chance to forfeit and avoid humiliation in front of the Hokage and the villagers, Hinata stood firm. Flashback, the fight. When Neji, the referee of the match, called for the fight to begin, both Hinata and Hiashi activated their Byakugan. Hinata vanished in a burst of speed, moving faster than anyone could track, except perhaps Guy or Lee, without their weights. In an instant, she appeared in front of Hiashi, who was caught off guard by her speed. She struck him with chakra scalpel, causing a sharp pain in his chest, then followed up with a powerful side kick to his head, sending him flying several feet away. Hiashi recovered quickly, but he was winded, coughing from the damage to his lungs. Have you fallen so far that you need to rely on medical techniques to fight me? Have you no shame, bringing disgrace to the Hyuga clan? Hiashi sneered. Hinata looked up at him, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Disgrace? If anyone has disgraced this clan, it's you, father, she said, her words filled with quiet confidence. You and the elders are so caught up in old traditions that you refuse to accept change. You cling to outdated beliefs, treating members of our clan as tools instead of equals. You refuse to acknowledge that true strength comes in many forms. The Hyuga clan needs to evolve. That's why I'll win this fight, she finished. The tension in the air was palpable, and many of the clan members exchanged uncomfortable glances. You insolent child, Hiashi snarled, his composure beginning to crack. He attacked with a series of powerful Juken strikes, but Hinata dodged each one with ease. Hiashi's attacks grew more desperate as he unleashed his 8 trigrams 64 palms. Hinata countered by using a technique she had developed herself, the protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. With a calm and steady voice, she explained, "This is my Shugo Haki Rakuju Ion Sho. It's a technique I created by combining the Juken with my natural flexibility and high chakra control. By emitting chakra from my palms, I can create sharp chakra blades and defend against attacks like the Haki Rakuju Ion Sho. It's my absolute defense, but it also allows me to strike with precision." The Hyuga clan members watched in shock, never expecting the quiet, timid heiress to possess such a powerful technique. Before Hiashi could fully process what was happening, Hinata vanished again, reappearing before him. She struck with a Juken blow aimed at his chest, but Hiashi, though experienced, wasn't fast enough. Her attack hit his arm, shattering it in the process. Hiashi roared in pain, the fight turning in Hinata's favor. Clutching her now injured arm with her other hand, "What did you do?" asked Hiashi, grinding his teeth together, trying to endure the pain from the injuries caused by Naruko's strike. "It is a technique I created, called Dageki Sendo, Impact Strike, developed from my training with Tsunade-sensei. 3 years ago, after you spoke to me harshly, telling me I would be better off gone, words that shocked everyone who heard them, I went to Tsunade-sensei and asked for her help. She agreed to train me in secret. Over the years, she taught me many advanced medical techniques and trained me to grow stronger. She also taught me the basics of her super strength and how to harness it, and I combined it with my Juken style and my high chakra control. The result is a technique that allows me to send concentrated pulses of chakra through my fingertips into whatever I strike, causing it to shatter. Depending on how much chakra I use, I can break bones and cause internal damage with just one hit. What you experienced, father, was with only a small amount of chakra," Naruko explained with a stern expression, her voice cold and calculated. Her words sent a chill through the audience, and many gasped in disbelief at the coldness in her tone. Naruko vanished in the blink of an eye and reappeared in front of Hiashi, delivering another Dageki Sendo to his chest. He staggered back, struggling to maintain his balance as pain coursed through his body. Naruko moved again, striking with precision and force, hitting Hiashi multiple times, each blow sending him crashing against the arena walls. The sound of his impact reverberated through the room as his body absorbed the force, leaving cracks in the walls and deepening the injuries. The onlookers could only watch in stunned silence, some cringing, others unable to look at the sight of Hyashi's pain. When Naruko finally paused, the audience held their breath, unsure of what would happen next. Naruko entered the Haki Rakujuion Sho stance and combined it with her Dageki Sendo technique, unleashing a series of strikes. Hiashi screamed as every bone in his body was shattered by the force of her blows, and he was sent flying through the arena wall, landing far beyond it in a heap. Naruko stood over him, her expression as cold as ice. For the first time in years, Hiashi, the proud head of the Hyuga clan, felt a deep and terrifying fear as he looked into his daughter's eyes. His body was broken, his breath ragged, and he knew without a doubt that he needed immediate medical attention to survive. Naruko raised her hand for one final strike, ready to end the confrontation, when suddenly, Neji and several other members of the Hyuga branch family appeared, stepping forward to restrain her. "Hinata-sama, please stop. There is no need for this. You have won, you are the new leader of the Hyuga clan. Please, do not let this go any further. He is not worth it. This is not who you are meant to become," Neji pleaded, concern evident in his voice. For a moment, it seemed as though Naruko might continue, but hearing Neji's words, and the mention of Naruto, softened her resolve. She slowly lowered her hand, nodding slightly to show she was done. With the confrontation over, Naruko kneeled beside her father, her expression unreadable. The Hyuga branch members tensed, fearing another attack, but Neji signaled for them to stand down. Naruko leaned in close to Hyashi's ear and whispered, her voice cold yet composed, "Who is the weak one now, father?" Her words were sharp and filled with disdain, but they held no malice beyond her quiet fury. She stood up, turning her back on him, walking away with a calm demeanor, though the weight of her actions hung in the air. Had she looked back, she would have seen a single tear fall from Hyashi's eye, right before he lost consciousness. Flashback ends. After the battle, Naruko was officially made the new head of the Hyuga clan. She called a meeting with the Hyuga Council of Elders, where she announced several reforms. She declared the removal of the caged bird seal from all branch family members, disbanded the old council, and reformed it to include members from both the main house and branch families. Furthermore, she abolished the rule that restricted clan members from learning jutsu outside the clan, allowing them to study any jutsu that might benefit the village. When the elders tried to oppose her, she demonstrated her power by destroying a wall with a single strike of her Dageki Sendo. She made it clear that anyone who disagreed with her leadership could challenge her, but the elders, having witnessed the outcome of her fight with her father, backed down. Naruko's reputation quickly spread, earning her both respect and fear from the village, with some even comparing her to Tsunade and other legendary figures. With the caged bird seal removed, the new council was formed, and Neji was named the leader of the council. He also became Naruko's personal advisor. Over the following years, Naruko continued to serve as a ninja, taking on high-ranking missions and becoming a jonin. She gained recognition in several Ninja Nations bingo books, where she earned the nickname Hyuga Shikyo no Megami, Hyuga's goddess of death, accompanied by a warning to approach her with caution. She also worked as a skilled healer, respected by many, though Tsunade, Shizune, and Sakura were still regarded as the top in the field. Though Naruko's transformation from a kind, gentle girl to a fierce, resolute leader was evident, those close to her, like Kurenai, still saw the loneliness and sadness in her eyes. Despite the cold exterior she presented to the village and dignitaries, Naruko remained a caring and kind person to those she trusted. She greeted her patients and friends with warmth, offering assistance when needed, but it was clear that the loss of Naruto had left a deep emotional scar that had never fully healed. As Kurenai reflected on Hinata's situation, she couldn't help but think about Hiashi, Hinata's father. After his battle with Hinata, Hiashi had spent a year in the hospital due to the severe injuries he sustained during the fight. Despite Tsunade's swift efforts to get him to the hospital, Hiashi was on the brink of collapse when he arrived. Tsunade and her team, including Sakura and Shizune, worked tirelessly for hours to stabilize him. It took nearly an entire year for him to recover, with constant care from the medical team. The damage was so severe that it took 6 additional months for him to regain the ability to walk on his own. During that long period, only a few people visited him: Sakura, Tsunade, Shizune, and the hospital staff. Many villagers, upon hearing of his actions toward his daughter, had lost all respect for him and chose to stay away. Kurenai, however, couldn't help but feel a sense of pity for Hiashi. She had seen him on several occasions, and each time, she noticed how much he had changed. He was no longer the proud and strong head of the Hyuga clan. Instead, he appeared as a broken man, unable to hold himself with the same dignity he once had. When Kurenai spoke with him, she saw the sorrow and regret in his eyes. The year in isolation had given him plenty of time to reflect on his past actions, particularly his treatment of his daughters, especially Hinata. Although many believed that Hyashi's suffering was a form of karma, Kurenai couldn't fully agree with this sentiment. She felt a deep sympathy for him. Yes, he had lost the love and respect of his family, but Kurenai also realized that this price was too high to pay for the sake of pride or legacy. In the end, Hiashi had indeed wanted Hinata to become a strong leader, but it had cost him everything. After pondering the past, Kurenai decided it was time to focus on her current mission and return to her son, hoping for a smooth journey ahead. Unfortunately, her hope would soon be shattered. Meanwhile, miles away, behind a small deserted island, 3 Mizu no Kuni warships and 2 Kiri warships waited for the royal ship carrying Princess Sachi. On board the lead ship, a young crew member rushed to the Commodore. "Sir, the shark units you deployed have reported sighting the royal ship carrying Princess Sachi. It's only 3 miles away from us," the crew member said, saluting. "Excellent. Signal all ships to move out, and prepare the shinobi forces on board. Make sure all men are ready for action," the Commodore ordered. The crew member saluted again and ran off to relay the orders. The Commodore then turned to his companion. "Everything seems to be proceeding as planned. Will your men be ready?" the Commodore asked. "Of course. But ensure your men don't damage the princess's ship. She's invaluable to our success," replied Izuragi Raita. "I understand. Just make sure you and your men perform as needed. I've also heard that the Umi Daimyo has hired a skilled team of ninjas from Konoha to protect his daughter," the Commodore noted. Raita scoffed, "Konoha is no longer what it once was. By the time this day is over, we will have the princess, and everyone will know that the shinobi of Konoha are no match for those of Kiri." "We'll see," the Commodore responded, walking away to prepare his forces for battle. Raita ignored the Commodore's words. He was the last remaining loyal member of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nanan Shu, after most of the group had either died or turned traitor. Raita believed that the time had come for Kiri to rise again and for him to become the hero of the village. 1 hour later, aboard the royal ship, Kurenai and Sakura were engaged in conversation with Princess Sachi, telling her about life in Konoha. Meanwhile, Lee was enthusiastically showing pictures of his daughter to the guards, who, while polite, found his excitement somewhat excessive. Choji was happily enjoying the food provided by the ship's cook. Suddenly, a cry came from the lookout. "Ships ahoy! Ships ahoy!" the lookout shouted. The crew rushed to see what was happening and spotted several ships in the distance. "How many ships?" the captain shouted. "There are 5, all warships, and they are heading straight for us," the lookout responded, causing immediate concern. "Are they pirates?" the captain asked. "No," replied the lookout. Everyone braced for what might be a difficult confrontation. "Then who are they?" the captain shouted back. "They are from Mizu no Kuni, and 2 of them have the symbol of Kirigakure on them," the man replied. "What are ships from Mizu no Kuni and Kirigakure doing this far south?" the captain asked aloud. "They must be after the princess. That is the only possibility. They likely want to capture her, either for ransom or to use her as leverage to influence both Umi no Kuni and Tsuki no Kuni," Kurenai explained as she approached the captain. "If that's the case, we cannot let them capture me," Princess Sachi answered firmly. "I refuse to be used as a political pawn to force both my father and Hikaru-kun to do the will of the Mizu daimyo." "Do not worry, princess. We will protect you, and we will ensure that they never lay a hand on you," the captain assured her. "Captain, can this ship outrun those warships?" Princess Sachi asked. "Of course, princess. This is the fastest ship in the Southern Sea. There's no way they'll be able to outrun us," the captain responded confidently. The captain quickly turned and began shouting orders to the crew to increase the ship's speed. Soon enough, the sails were released, and the ship began to gain distance from the pursuing warships. But just when they thought they had escaped, 12 shinobi emerged from the water and landed on the ship's deck. The shinobi all wore breathing masks, likely for underwater missions, and they were dressed in onbu-like armor with kiri headbands. On their armor, They had a small shark kanji symbol. Watch out! They are from Kiri's shark unit, their elite underwater combat team. They are experts in both open sea and underwater combat, Kurenai shouted. You men, surround the princess and protect her. We will handle them ourselves. The guards quickly formed a circle around Princess Sachi, ready to defend her with their swords. With Kurenai quickly engaged with two shark members. She began performing hand seals for a jutsu, and just as the shark members charged, she finished her seals and vanished. Where did she go? One of the shark members asked, turning to look for her. Before he could answer, both shinobi found themselves wrapped in tree-like vines that sprang from the ship's deck. A tree then grew behind them, and the two were quickly bound. Before they could escape, Kurenai emerged from the tree, like a flower blooming. She swiftly disarmed them, ensuring they were no longer a threat. After the battle, an explosion rang out on the deck, drawing Kurenai's attention. With Sakura. Meanwhile, Sakura faced off against two shark nins. She narrowly avoided a Mizurappa, violent water wave, jutsu and then quickly countered one of the shark nins, kicking him to the ground. Sakura swiftly got back to her feet and charged at the remaining shark nin, using her incredible strength to knock him out of the ship and into the sea. As she turned to face the next opponent, an incoming kunai was thrown at her. Sakura leapt into the air, avoiding the kunai, and then delivered a powerful axe kick to the shark nin's head, sending him crashing through the deck and into the ship's lower levels. Sakura brushed herself off, satisfied with her victory, but her focus was soon diverted by another explosion on the ship. With Lee, using his exceptional speed, confronted three shark nins. He landed a solid punch to one shark nin's face, sending him crashing into the mast. Lee then dodged an attack from another shark nin and quickly reappeared behind him. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Whirlwind. He called out, delivering a spinning kick that sent the shark nin flying across the ship. Turning to face the final shark nin, Lee dodged a series of shuriken and quickly closed the gap. He executed a swift Konoha Shofu, Leaf Rising Wind, to send the shark nin into the air. With his Kage Buyo, Shadow of the Dancing Leaf, Lee struck the shark nin in a pressure point on his back, temporarily paralyzing him. He then wrapped his bandages around the shark nin's body, sending him into a spinning fall, crashing through the ship's deck. Lee stood victorious, but another explosion on the deck drew his attention. Lee glanced down through the hole in the ship's deck and saw the unconscious figure of the enemy on the lower level. A small smile crossed his face at his victory, but the moment was brief as an explosion on the deck caught his attention. With Choji quickly raised his large battle axe to block a shuriken attack from the two shark nins he was facing. He had been trying to land a hit on them with his axe, but they managed to dodge every time. Realizing this approach wasn't working, he slammed the head of his axe onto the deck, embedding it there. Determined, Choji used his partial multi-size technique to enlarge his arms, making them big enough to grab the two shark nins. Once in his grip, he slammed them together, stunning them. He then said, "Sorry, but since neither of you have a boarding pass, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the ship." With that, Choji tossed the two shark nins into the air and out into the open sea. "Happy landings," he called, his grin fading quickly as another explosion rang out on the deck. He turned to see what had happened. General viewpoint. The shark nins Lee, Kurenai, Sakura, and Choji had been battling were simply a distraction. Their real mission was to sabotage the ship. Meanwhile, three other shark nins planted explosive tags on the ship's mainmast. They detonated them, causing the mast to collapse into the sea. As the Konoha team realized the deception, they understood that the shark nin's true target was the mast, not the princess. The mast's destruction would slow the ship, allowing the enemy warships to catch up. "Damn it, they weren't after the princess, they were after the mast," Kurenai muttered, frustrated with herself for not seeing it sooner. "We should have been protecting it." "What do we do now?" Sakura asked. "With the mast gone, we can't outrun those warships. The best we can do is try to defend ourselves. If they want the princess, they'll board, but we'll be outnumbered, especially if they have more ninjas on those ships," Kurenai replied, worry evident in her voice. Suddenly, they heard blasts from the warships. Hundreds of kunai flew toward them, but they all missed the ship and instead hit the water. Upon impact, they exploded, causing large splashes of water to drench the deck. "Take cover," Choji shouted. As the crew and guards scrambled for shelter, many of them used their own bodies to shield the princess. "Are you okay, princess? Are you hurt?" Captain Yamaka asked urgently. "I'm fine, thank you, Captain Yamaka," Princess Sachi replied, standing after her guards had protected her from the blast. Exploding kunai. Are they trying to kill us? Choji cried in disbelief. Not quite. This was just a warning, Kurenai said. They want us to know they can do much worse if they choose. Do you know what kind of weapons they used? Lee asked. I'm not certain, but I fear I might have an idea. If I'm right, we could be in even more trouble, Kurenai answered, worry creeping into her tone. The warships soon surrounded the Konoha ship. Despite the preparations of the princess's guards and the Konoha team, they were outnumbered. To their shock, the warships were armed with volley guns, capable of launching large numbers of kunai with deadly precision. There were also dozens of Mizu warriors and Kiri ninjas aboard the ships, all heavily armed. I've seen weapons like these before, Sakura said, recognizing the volley guns. They belong to Haru/Yuki no Kuni. Yes, Kurenai replied. They were once thought to be a secret, but it seems Kiri managed to get their hands on them. Sakura frowned. But how? Haru/Yuki no Kuni is allied with Kumo, and the Mizukage would never have given Kiri these weapons. Apparently, one of Haru/Yuki no Kuni's officials sold the plans to Kiri a while ago. Jiraiya-sama reported it, but we never had proof. It seems they've been keeping this a secret ever since, Kurenai explained. Soon, a figure clad in samurai armor appeared on the command deck of the Mizu warship. His voice boomed across the deck. Attention all crew and warriors. As you can see, we have you surrounded. Our weapons are ready, and I suggest you surrender to avoid further conflict. We do not wish to cause more harm today. You wouldn't fire those weapons at us, Kurenai said boldly, stepping forward. You clearly want to take the princess alive, so if you attack now, you'll risk her life as well. The samurai leader, Commodore Fujikazen, nodded to one of his soldiers, who fired several kunai near Kurenai's feet, forcing her to step back in surprise. Kazan then raised his hand, signaling the others to hold fire. As you can see, we have handheld versions of these weapons as well, Commodore Kazan said calmly. We are more than capable of boarding your ship from every direction, and we vastly outnumber you. There's no need for further resistance. Surrender now, and I promise no harm will come to you. I will give you 30 seconds to decide. Princess Sachi stepped forward from behind her guards and spoke with calm authority, her voice unwavering. Although I would rather not be used as a political pawn, I cannot allow these people to die for me. If you swear by your honor as an officer that no one else will be harmed, I will surrender myself without resistance. Princess, no. Captain Yamaka cried, rushing to stop her, but she held up her hand, signaling for him to stand down. Captain, this is my decision. Stand down, she commanded. Reluctantly, Captain Yamaka stepped back, and the princess turned to Commodore Kazan. Do we have an agreement, then? Commodore Kazan nodded. We do. I, Commodore Kazan of the Mizu no Kuni Royal Fleet, give you my word that no harm will come to anyone else on your ship. After the agreement was made, Princess Sachi ordered her guards and the Konoha team to lower their weapons and surrender to the Mizu and Kiri forces. The crew and Konoha ninjas were quickly rounded up, their hands raised in surrender. Princess Sachi stood tall in front of them, flanked by 2 Mizu samurai. Commodore Kazan and another man, who appeared to be a large, muscular figure with a stern face, boarded the ship. The man introduced himself with a heavy presence. I am Izuragi Raita, the last loyal member of the Kiri Shinobigatana Nananin Shu and commander of these forces. Raita moved toward Princess Sachi, placing his hand on her face. Several of the guards flinched, but the princess slapped his hand away. Do not touch me, she hissed, glaring at him. Raita chuckled. I like a woman with spirit. The prince of Tsuki no Kuni is a lucky man. Enough. Commodore Kazan interjected sharply, stepping between the two. You will show Princess Sachi the respect she deserves. Turning to the princess, he continued, Princess Sachi, I offer you my quarters during your stay on my ship. You will be treated with respect. Thank you, Commodore Kazan, Princess Sachi replied, nodding. But what about my guards and the Konoha team? They will not be harmed. I give you my word, Kazan assured her. Raita, however, spoke up. Except for the Konoha ninjas. They are prisoners of war. Raita, you have no say in this matter, Commodore Kazan responded firmly. I gave my word to Princess Sachi, and I intend to keep it. Besides, I would be foolish to let such valuable prisoners as these 4 get away. The one in green is Rock Lee, Konoha's Nidaime no Ketakai Aoi Moju, one of Konoha's top Jonin fighters and spouse to the Kurama clan's head. The one in armor is Akimichi Choji, Konoha's Kyojin Keiud, and heir to the Akimichi clan, also a member of the Neo Inoshika Cho. The red-eyed beauty is Yuhi Sarutobi Kurenai, Konoha's famed genjutsu specialist, former spouse of the late Sarutobi Asuma, and aunt to Sarutobi Konohamaru. Lastly, the one with pink hair is Haruno Sakura, Konoha's Chiyu Sakura, and apprentice to the god Im Hokage. These four hold valuable information that could be crucial for Kiri in the war against Konoha, said Ryota as he approached the Konoha shinobi. No matter what you do to us, we will never talk and we will never betray our village, spoke Sakura firmly. Afterward, Ryota cupped her face gently and replied. Brave words, but you will eventually break. Kiri shinobi are skilled at extracting information from people, and when we have what we need, we'll have a little fun together. I especially look forward to spending time with you, Kurenai-san, Ryota said, releasing Sakura's face and then cupping Kurenai's face in his large hands. I must say, you're even more beautiful in person than in the Kiri bingo book, said Ryota, causing Kurenai to give him a look full of disdain. She had heard of Ryota, a renowned swordsman from Kiri known for his ruthlessness and his brutal actions against those who oppose the god Im Mizukage or the Mizu Daimyo. Ryota saw the look Kurenai gave him and chuckled. Good. I like women who are feisty. It only makes it better when they eventually give in. Ryota smirked as Kurenai continued to glare at him with all the hatred she could muster. Ryota then turned his attention to Sakura and glanced over her form. Sakura felt uncomfortable under his gaze but stood firm, glaring at him just as Kurenai had. Perhaps after I'm done here, I'll pay you a visit, Miss Haruno, Ryota remarked with an unsettling grin as he ran his hand through Sakura's pink hair. This caused Sakura to shudder before glaring at him with equal intensity. Ryota just laughed before turning to the Kiri nin around them. You men. Take the prisoners to the brig, Ryota ordered the shinobi, who obeyed without hesitation. As the Konoha shinobi were escorted aboard one of the Kiri warships, all four of them knew what awaited them upon reaching Mizu no Kuni. They would be held in a Kiri prison where they would be interrogated. While they weren't sure what would happen after that, they feared the worst, being forgotten or abandoned in some distant, unmarked grave. With little chance of rescue given Konoha's current struggles, they had lost hope of returning to their loved ones. The four Konoha shinobi walked aboard the warship, their heads lowered in defeat. They had failed to protect the princess, who would now be used as a political pawn in the schemes of the god Im Mizukage and the Mizu Daimyo. They had failed to secure a trade alliance with Umi no Kuni and Tsuki no Kuni. Worse still, they had failed to return to their loved ones, leaving them with a sense of loss and hopelessness. Princess's point of view. As Kurenai and the others were led away by the Kiri shinobi, Princess Sachi quickly turned to Commodore Kazan. Commodore Kazan, please, is there anything you can do to stop them? The princess pleaded. The Commodore sighed sadly and replied, I'm sorry, Princess, but as Ryota said, this is a shinobi matter, and I have no authority to interfere. He's within his rights, given that Kiri and Konoha are at war. There's nothing I can do. It's beyond my control now. He then extended his hand to the princess and said, Princess Sachi, if you will, please accompany me to my quarters. You may stay there for the journey to Mizu no Kuni. Princess Sachi silently followed Commodore Kazan to his quarters. Along the way, she prayed fervently, hoping with all her heart that someone would come to their rescue and save them from this nightmare. And that's a wrap for part 1, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. We've got plenty more coming your way, and you definitely want to be a part of it. Your support means the world, and it's the fuel that keeps this channel going. Catch you in the next one, and as always, stay awesome. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.